with what he can do. And you guys are getting like that.
Selling the soap.
No, I'm just so proud of you. I look at that and say, I can't do that yet. But I wanted to also say that I'm proud of the other people that have been running the rounds. You guys are doing it as well as he, you know, like he is. You're running rounds better than I could right now. Okay? So I just want you to know that. I can tell you more things about the rounds than you know. But as far as getting people's bodies where they need to be and getting everybody to be quiet at the same time long enough to get done what needs to be done while you're doing your part, that is a job. So the people that are running the rounds, I just wanted to say thank you. That is, you're doing amazing work that I wish I had time that I could, you know, catch up on my skills with that. I can do it, but I would hate to, I could see me trying to run around right now because I have a million other things that I've been working on and focusing on. It's like, oh my God, where's my manual? You know, step one was, because I haven't done it. The techniques are going to be like this for you. I just want to point this out, that the most important techniques will be on the list of 12 steps that you're going to get hopefully by the end of today. You will get it by the end of today, at least that. There's something called a technique groupie. That's not necessarily a part of our group, but any group. People collect techniques, right? They learn this and they learn that, and they have like diplomas from 2,000 different things that they've learned how to do. They know this energy work, that energy work. They've learned so much and taken so much in, but they've hardly integrated any of it. They don't have a specialty. You need to spend the time, just like with me. I've not had the ability to develop a specialty in being a master of the rounds, where I can get out there and without looking at my book, just, you know, do a good job at the rounds. There's other things I can do. I can talk for a whole day. I can talk for 2 whole days without even looking at a book. I keep going and going and going, sometimes 4, sometimes 9, you know. This is a technique. It's worth paying attention to now, and you're going to get a copy of this too. It's going to be in your thing. And it's worth being one of those that you put as a priority, that don't worry about what's next. Worry about mastering this one first, all right? Now, you have other techniques you already know. They're compatible with this, but this is going to be a core technique that will take it into the future. If you're going to be teaching people, you can't start them with this. Remember, you need to start them with Maharic Seal and doing a regular salutation, because if they don't have those earlier activations in the DNA template, these will not activate. So from there...
And this is before we get into the main transcription here, but a lot of people are getting activated and are being very open, and yet they're not quite integrated. And but they're perceiving that they're receiving guidance from the guardians. So again, I know some of you have heard this before, but for you new people, if for some reason you think you're hearing guidance from the guardians, send an email to MAC, let her know what's happening, and she'll go to Ash and Azertanya, and they will verify whether it is or not. Okay, so remember that, because the biggest thing is to protect you, and we don't want any of you taken down. So on that note, Maharic Shield's up, and let's get on with the program. This is the Maharata text CDT plate translation and flame holder contracts. The translation contract for the Maharata text is preordained and determined solely by the Emerald Order, Melchizedek Cloister, Melchizedek Cloister, Janus Ekadek Master Council, and is overseen by the Emerald Order, Melchizedek Cloister, Eloi, Elohim, Christos founders, Azerite, Maharaji, and Yanni races of the Azerite Universal Templar Security Team, Janus High Council. I'm seeing this for the first time too, so as dictated by ancient Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus security protocols, and as practiced throughout history, Maharata text translation contracts are solely entrusted to the 3 Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister endorsed CDT plate speakers. All true Maharata text translations will be subject to authentication and source verification through Speaker 1. a lifetime position appointed prior to birth by the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Akkadic Master Council, and held in this generation by Ashana Dean Etkar Melchizedek Cloister, who is presently the originator of all contemporary translations of Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister teachings and CDT plate translations on surface earth. Speakers 2 and 3 will soon join Speaker 1 in translation of Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister CDT plate teachings. Prior to birth in this lifetime, Speaker 1, in translation of Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister CDT plate teachings, Prior to birth in this lifetime, Speaker 1, an incarnate member of the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Master Council and Janus Signet 12 Inner Council of Amenti, was chosen and entrusted by the Janus Akkadic Master Council and its many voting representatives, subsidiaries, to hold the Master Service Contract of Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Eckar Blue Flame Holder and Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Speaker 1 during the 2000 to 2017 Stiller activation cycle. The 3 flame holders of the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Azurite Temple Universal Templar Security Team are 3 individual indigo children selected for flame holder universal service contracts. Flame holders are born with specialized dormant universal flame codes, which are universal Stargate Master Security codes in their DNA templates, which allows them to fully embody and run the full spectrum primal light and primal sound frequencies corresponding to their flame into Earth's Templar. Flame holders are the anchoring rods of primal frequency during stellar activation cycles. They first draw into their bodies and then transmit or anchor into Earth's planetary shields each progressive subharmonic subfrequency band of their assigned primal force current as the universal stargates progressively open and transmit interdimensional scalar frequency during the course of a stellar activation cycle. As full thrust primal currents anchor through their bodies, DNA templates of the flame holders, the frequencies are downstepped, are synthesized into slower moving pulses, then transmitted into Earth's shields to activate the planetary Templar. The downstepped flame currents are simultaneously transmitted from the flame holders directly into the common DNA template, tribal shield of the corresponding indigo child and 12-strand angelic human flame keeper groups, who further downstep the pulse speed of the primal currents and transmit them to the general planetary life field. If it were not for the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Flame Holder and Flame Keeper Universal Templar security teams and their universal service mission of primal current downstepping, Earth's planetary shields would be unable to synthesize the faster-moving pulses of Stargate primal current, which would cause Earth to pole shift during stellar activation cycles. The flame holders and flame keepers, collectives incarnating on Earth, were elected for their contracts 550 million years ago with the fall of Tara and creation of the sphere of Amenti, and that's reference Voyagers Volume 2. They began their earthly incarnation cycles as Earth-appointed planetary Templar guardians 25 million years ago with creation of the halls of Amenti, port interface system stargates. The large collective of flame holders and keepers originally appointed to these positions, agreed to repeatedly incarnate on Earth until Earth's planetary shields were finally restored to their natural order through fulfillment of the Emerald Covenant Founders' Christos Realignment Mission, which was the full resetting of Earth's organic D12 pre-matter divine blueprint, the Shield of Era Matena Lyra, an event long scheduled for fulfillment on December 21st, 2012 AD. Flame group members rotate in their incarnations, each ensuring that a minimum of 144,000 members of the respective flames are incarnate on planet to collectively and cooperatively stabilize and run Earth's Templar during stellar activation cycles. During non-stellar activation periods, flame groups have historically been commissioned to serve as the guardians and keepers of Earth's races, assisting in mass race evolution toward the Christiac ideal of the Emerald Covenant freedom teachings. During stellar activation cycle periods, the original ancient ones of the original Sphere of Amente Commission rotate in for their appointed shift of serving as flame holders, commissioned to guide the Flame Keepers groups in fulfilling their objective of moving Earth's Templar and life field successfully through the stellar activation cycle. In times of stellar activation cycle crisis events, the blue flame groups are capable of running the full spectrum of the blue, gold, and violet flame currents, and gold flame groups can run the violet flame currents, allowing the potential of progressive evacuation for all but an essential Templar skeleton crew. In pole shift evac dramas, Earth's Templar can be stabilized by a minimum bare bones crew of 3 incarnate, emerald ordered Melchizedek Cloister blue flame Ekars, working closely with the Iani flame groups of the inner Earth time cycle and the Janus Akkadic Master Councils. If pole shift initiates in a stellar activation cycle, due to planetary shield damage, a minimum of 144 High Council Blue Flame Keeper Indigos, plus their 3 Ekars and massive off-planet assistance is required to maintain functional integrity of Earth's Templar. Ideally, the 3 flame holders and keeper groups, each with a minimum 144,000 members and 432,000 total minimum, serving as the planetary Templar security team, are able to guide Earth safely through a stellar activation cycle. Flame groups, and most especially the flame holders, have been the age-old nemesis of all fallen angelic legions, as the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister flame group teams have successfully prevented Earth from a complete fall into the fallen legion's phantom matrix black hole system since the fall of Terra 550 million years ago. They have also kept the indigo and angelic human grail line guardian races of Earth alive for millions of years, progressively carrying the torch of the eternal flames towards the eventual fulfillment of Earth's planetary Christos realignment healing. Each Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister, Janus appointed flame holder of the 3 flame holders, Akkadic Blue, Polaric Gold, and Triadic Violet, has only 2 incarnate backups in case the original appointee becomes unable to complete the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister flame holder DNA activation cycle to fulfill the flame holder's master service contract. If the 3 potential flame holders for 1 flame fall, jurisdiction over flame holder assignment reverts completely back to Emerald Order Janus Akkadic Master Council authority. The blue flame holder position can only be reassigned to an incarnate 48-strand DNA template Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Ekar female, female form can carry the extra base magnetic flame codes needed to anchor the ectotic blue flame, who is capable of running all DNA template flame codes. There are only 3 incarnate Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Eckhars permitted to incarnate on surface Earth at the same time in a stellar activation period. More would pose threat, of course, of planetary grid overload when their DNA begins automatic activation in a stellar activation cycle. As previously identified, Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Blue Flame Holder Speaker 1 is one incarnated, activated, and Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus endorsed Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Eckhar. Another is the individual soon to be mentioned who holds the final Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister CDT Plate Speakers 2 contract reassignment. In mid-1999, the third incarnate Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Eckhar fell to Omicron Draconian DNA template moadic reversal, just as his ectotic DNA template codes entered pre-activation initiation, which is the most vulnerable period for awakening Eckhars. Ectotic DNA template codes automatically shut down completely under the irreversible condition of DNA template monadic reversal. There are no backup Eckhars to potentially resume the Eckhar contract should one of the original 3 become unable to complete its part of the 3 Eckhars' common universal service mission. In most circumstances, the mission of a fallen Eckhar is adopted and shared by the remaining 2. Following the unfortunate fate of the third contemporary Eckhar and the subsequent fortunate circumstance that 2 DNA template-activated Eckhars remain functional on surface Earth to provide the potential of a new Eckhar birth, both mother and father must have a minimum of dormant recessive ectotic DNA coding to produce a fetal body capable of holding an Eckhar consciousness. The Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Ectotic Master Council has authorized a final Eckhar birthing contract to bring a third Eckhar into earthly incarnation for the 2000 to 2017 stellar activation cycle. The third Eckhar Commission has been assigned to Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Rian Ben Azerton, originally commissioned as Avatar 5 of the 6 silent avatars. Rian was initially scheduled for a general 11-strand activated Avatar Master Service Contract birth on July 22, 2008, until the Unified Intruder Resistance. It's abbreviated here, and have to remember what the abbreviations are. Yes, thank you. UIR. War Edict of September 12, 2000 placed the Emerald Order Melchizedek agenda on the red alert crisis intervention schedule. At this time, many dormant backup Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Indigo Master Service contracts, such as Rian's, were called into higher level activation. Should the 2 active Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Eckhars presently incarnate on Earth agree to assist, Rian will incarnate within the next 1 to 4 years as the third and final Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Eckhar to fulfill the third Eckhar role of planetary frequency transmission, which would otherwise transfer to and biologically stress the 2 remaining activated incarnate Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Eckhars. Sananda ben Jehovah was Yeshua 12, Jesus in 12 BC to 27 AD lifetime, originally scheduled for May 5, 2012 birth as the 12-strand activated 6th avatar, could not take on an Eckhar birth contract in the present time period due to his prior master service contract commitments of assisting in a contemporary DNA biogenesis program for Ruby Order Anunnaki hybrid human races of Hyksos descent who are entering Emerald Covenant host matrix redemption contracts. He will initiate an early avatar birth before August 2003. Sananda is now scheduled, due to crisis intervention, schedule reassignment to incarnate through parents presently residing in Nova Scotia. Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Maharata Text Translation CDT Plate Speaker 2 and Speaker 3 contracts are now both officially activated due to necessary expedition of the original Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister CDT Plate Dispensation timetable brought on by the September 12, 2000 Crisis Intervention Schedule. Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Speakers 2 and 3 are now officially endorsed and activated. Both, like Speaker 1, are incarnate members of the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Master Council, each with their respective preordained, pre-birth universal service contracts. In 1992, the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Ecstatic Master Council commissioned the contemporary EC, Emerald Covenant. Thank you. It's amazing how your mind just blanks out. Emerald Covenant CDT Plate Speaker 2 contract to incarnate Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Azertanya Michael Dean, when the incarnate member of the Gold Order D12 Seraphi Seraphim Council originally assigned the Speaker 2 contract, Phil. That person fell to Omicron Draconian DNA template Moadic reversal. In 1996, 3 years prior to his meeting of Speaker 1 Ashana, Speaker 2 Azertanya was further assigned the final backup position for the Gold Flame Holder contract in the event that the incarnate Level 3 Ordinate Regent, originally holding the Gold Flame Holder backup Number 2 commission on behalf of the Ruby Order Anu Seraphim Middle Council, became unable to complete the Gold Flame Code DNA activation cycle as originally intended. The original Gold Flame Holder, an Elder Consummate Level 5, Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Ordinate of the Gold Order Polaric Wachayanas Middle Council, and originally a member of the Janus Signet 12 Inner Council, fell to Draconian Moadic reversal in 1988. Gold Flame Holder Backup Number 1, a D12 regent of the Seraphi Seraphim Middle Council, fell to a similar fate earlier. And at that time it was in 1972. In 1999, the Ruby Order Gold Flame Holder Backup Number 2 became biologically unable to fulfill Gold Flame Holder DNA template activation due to health problems related to Ruby Order Anu Seraphim defection from the Emerald Covenant Co-Evolution Peace Treaty. Subsequently, in January 1999, the Emerald Order Janus Ecstatic Master Council initiated Gold Flame Holder Ekar DNA template activation in Speaker 2 Azertanya. Until Speaker 2 successfully completed the initial rounds of expedited Gold Flame Holder Ekar Code DNA template activation, the Iani High Council appointed a Gold Order, Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Saras Regent with partial recessive Gold Flame Holder codes in his DNA template, a temporary commission to assist the faltering Gold Backup 2 Regent in running the frequencies of initial Gold Flame Holder codes that had begun activation in his DNA template. This intermediary assignment was rendered in order to prevent automatic default activation of the Gold Flame Holder codes within the DNA template of the Blue Flame Holder, which would have otherwise occurred in response to Gold Backup 2 being unable to hold the frequencies of the Gold Flame Holder code activation. This would have severely damaged the Blue Flame Holder's body during that period of her own Blue Flame Holder code activation, and further activation of the Gold Flame Holder codes within Gold Backup 2's DNA and within the DNA template. And this would have caused rapid deterioration and physical death of his body. In August 2000, the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Yana Sikhatic Master Council and Iani Master Council guided speakers 1 and 2, Ikadic twins, into meeting for the first time, and initiated Yana's High Council contract in Peru in preparation for expediting completion of the Gold Flame Holder contract reassignment. Final transfer of the Gold Flame Holder contract was orchestrated 18 months sooner than originally intended, as the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Yana Sikhatic Master Council anticipated pending failure of the 1992 Pleiadian-Syrian agreements, Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Ruby Order Emerald Covenant Treaty, and the resultant potential necessity of engaging the crisis intervention schedule. In October 2000, the Gold Flame Holder Commission was fully transferred to Speaker number 2, Azur Tanya, who recently completed the Speaker 2 contract DNA activation cycle and has just completed the final sequence of Gold Flame Holder DNA activations. Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister CDT Plate Speaker 2 is now fully activated and is endorsed by and in personal speakers communication with the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Yana Sikhatic Master Council, authorized to hold the legitimate Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister CDT Plate Speaker 2 and Gold Flame Holders position. In 2000, the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Yana Sikhatic Master Council tentatively commissioned the contemporary CDT Plate Speaker 3 and Violet Flame Holders contracts to incarnate Violet Flame Holder Backup number 2, an incarnate Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Regent of the Emerald Order Iyani Ramayana Council, and began the preliminary Violet Flame Code Speaker 3 DNA template activation cycle. The original Violet Flame Holder, who originally held OMC CD Plate Speaker 3 contract, and Elder Consummate Initiate Level 5 Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Ordinant of the Triadic Ramayana Base Council, fell to Necromaton Andromi Nephilim Monadic Reversal in 1970. The Braha Rama Level 3 Regent Violet, backup number 1, met a similar fate at the hands of the Omicron Draconian Collective in 1996. In October 2001, the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Yana Sikhatic Master Council observed that any further expedition of Violet Flame Speaker 3 contract code activation for Violet Flame Holder backup number 2, originally not scheduled for activation till 2012, would biologically overstress her system, resulting in premature death of the body and subsequent inabilities to successfully fulfill either commission. Following her avatar's petition to Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Yana Sikhatic High Council to reassign her master service contracts so that she would biologically survive to assist in the 2012 fulfillment of the Planetary Priestess Realignment Mission, both the Violet Flame Holder and Speaker 3 contracts were reassigned. Unlike the requirement for reassignment of the Blue Flame Holder Commission, reassignment of the Violet Flame Holder Commission does not require an incarnate Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Eckhar, but it does require a minimum DNA template qualification of Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Elder Consummate, a Level 5 Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Ordinate by birth, in order to ensure biological stability during the frequency braiding associated with the Flame Code contract reassignment. Like Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Eckhar Level 6 Ordinance, one is either born with Elder Consummate DNA template coding or not. It cannot be tacked on or initiated after birth. To do so would rapidly end the physical life of the body. There are only 6 Elder Consummate Ordinate Riche permitted to incarnate to incarnate on Earth at the same time. Same reason as with the 3 Ekars, the potential planetary grid frequency overload. The 6 level 5 ordinate Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Emerald Consummate Riche incarnate. They all incarnate in the same time frame as the 3 level 6 ordinate Ekars, as do an additional 3 Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Consummate Rishi level 4 ordinates. And these are again by birth contracts only. All serve as incarnate members of the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Master Council if they are successful in completing their respective consummate, elder consummate, and Ekar DNA template activations within their commissioned awakening cycle. Together, these 12 individuals form the embodied Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Signet 12 Inner Council. And this is not to be confused with the Anunnaki's Council of 12 Fallen Angelic Collective. The surface Earth representatives of the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Master Council Administration. Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Signet 12 Inner Council is the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Azurite Security Team Administrative Council, appointed as the primary earthly trustees and contact personnel of the Iani and Janus High Councils. These positions of Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister responsibility are not awarded lightly and are all the product of long-standing pre-birth assignments decided upon via Janus Master Council vote. Individuals incarnated to fulfill these positions receive extensive prior training for a long series of incarnations, complete full ascension to a minimum of density 5, D15, for level 4 consummate birth contracts, then return to density incarnation after being nominated and elected for, then agreeing to accept the appointed Universal Master Service Contract Commission. All will go through their original awakening period when their contract initiates activation in their encoded DNA templates. Some will fall to earthly illness, amnesia, or fallen angelic infiltration during the vulnerability period that occurs as early DNA template initiation and preliminary activation cycles begin, never to fulfill their intended service contracts. None of the 12 individuals serving in surface Earth Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Signet 12 Inner Council positions in the contemporary period consciously requested these commissions in their present lifetimes. Iani High Council representatives notified them that their contemporary service contracts existed, and they were given opportunity to accept or reject their appointments before full DNA template contract activation commenced. Not all members of the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Signet 12 Inner Council hold flame holder or CDT plate speaker positions. But the original 3 flame holder contracts are always initially presented to Signet 12 Inner Council members. Presently, there are 9 remaining original members of the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Signet 12 Inner Council incarnate on surface Earth, 1 Ekar and 2 Elder Consummates, the original gold and violet flame holders, and a host of regions from the intended Indigo support team, have presently fallen to monadic reversal and are unable to fulfill their commissions. Ekarian Ben Azertan is scheduled to birth in soon to assume the fallen Ekar's intended mission. The gold flame holder contract, originally assigned to one of the fallen elder consummates, has now been successfully transferred to Ekar Speaker 2 Azertanya. The violet flame holder contract, originally assigned to the other fallen elder consummate, has now been successfully transferred to the only other fully activated Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Level 5 Ordinate Elder Consummate Blue Flame Holder Backup 2. 2 elder consummates are just beginning their delicate DNA template awakening cycles, and the other remaining elder consummate is presently fully engaged in serving his original Signet 5 service contract and cannot biologically hold the additional frequency burden of accepting a contract transfer. 2 of the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Yana Signet 12 Inner Council Level 4 Ordinate Consummate Rishi are also just entering their awakening cycle. The 3rd Consummate Rishi, originally Blue Flame Backup 1, is presently recovering from childhood health problems that rendered her physically unable to fulfill her original Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister commissions. She is presently engaged in a less biologically demanding master service contract. The Violet Flame Holder Backup Number 2, Regent, whose Avatar Collective requested contract reassignment following her unfortunate difficulty with preliminary Violet Flame Code DNA template activation, is now reassigned to another unrelated master service commission. The Level 5 Ordinate Elder Consummate and member of the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Yana Signet 12 Inner Council, commissioned to carry the Violet Flame Holder and CDT Plate Speaker 3 contracts, began her Elder Consummate DNA template activations in 1999 in preparation for her original 2003 Master Service contract. She successfully completed the final round of Elder Consummate DNA template activations in 2001, and shortly thereafter, the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Yana Psychotic Master Council invited her to accept the Violet Flame Holder Speaker 3 commission. She accepted. The finalized, officially endorsed Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister CDT Plate Speaker 3 Violet Flame Holder contract bearer is Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Elder Consummate Riche Marianne Calloway. Yay, Matt. Yes. Though all 9 remaining original members of the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Yana Signet 12 Inner Council are not as yet fully awakened to their universal master service contracts, their identities and positions have been recently revealed to the 3 Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister speakers. The identity of the fallen Ekar and those of the 2 fallen Elder Consummates have also been revealed in confidence to the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister speakers. These revelations were provided by the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Yana Psychotic Master Council to protect against the false claims of Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Association and advancing attempts of infiltration and manipulation of Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Team Indigo groups that are presently being orchestrated by Necromaton, Andromi, Nephilim, Omicron, Decronian, and United Intruder Resistance fallen angelic collectives. These revelations will be held in private speakers' confidence until inner council members discover their greater missions, choose whether or not they desire to complete their birth agreements, and personally decide if they desire the option of public disclosure under validation of the 3 Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Flame Holder speakers, which means we may not necessarily ever know. It's up to that person whether they want to have it revealed publicly. The Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Yana Signet 12 Inner Council is not an elitist dictatorial hierarchy. It is a fair, loving, and when necessary, assertively firm collective of long experienced, extensively trained, incarnate Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Rishi, Riche, and Ekars, who humbly agreed to serve in an extremely taxing, responsibility-laden, risk-filled, protective leadership role in relation to the huge team of indigo children and angelic human planetary Templar guardians, all of whom agreed originally to work together as members of the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Planetary Galactic Universal Templar Security Team. The 11 other Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Signet Councils, each with their own 12 Iani Inner Council members, are commissioned to guardianship of Stargates 11 through 1. In the original Planetary Christos Realignment Mission Emerald Covenant Agreements, Signet Councils 11 through 1 gladly agreed to work within the directives set by Janus Signet 12 Inner Council, just as Janus Signet 12 Inner Council agreed to follow the Emerald Covenant protocols and directives set forth by the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Ecadic Master Council and the various related intermediate councils with leadership appointments. Janus Signet 12 Inner Council members are those who incarnated with the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Azurite Universal Templar Security Team coding in their DNA templates, which would enable them to run all of the Stargate security codes should cataclysmic circumstances arise during a stellar activation cycle. They agreed to this level of unconditional service, even though running the Stargate security codes without the intended assistance of the other Signet Councils would cause death of their physical bodies should the need for this action arise. With this leadership commission came the understanding that in event of planetary crisis during a stellar activation cycle, Janus Signet 12 Inner Council would be the last to leave in assisting in the safe evac passage of the other Signet Council members and general planetary populations, and they would likewise be the first to return should cataclysmic events necessitate intensive planetary Templar healing and life field resettlement. The next section is on the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister CDT plate speaker, flame holder contract finalization, and Plan B. No backup reassignment for flame holder or CDT plate speakers contracts will be commissioned henceforth in this present stellar activation cycle, as the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Ecadic Master Council has, out of necessity, initiated the Plan B evac training schedule as a precautionary measure in regard to Earth changes potentials 2006 through 2012. The Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister evac training schedule has been initiated in order to prepare the Indigo Templar Security Team flame groups to assist humanity and themselves directly should the undesired possibility of Earth changes arise as the stellar activation cycle proceeds through the 2006 to 2012 period. Plan B protocol requires that successfully awakened and awakening members of the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Signet 12 Inner Council, who are historically those most experienced in crisis intervention operations, and incarnate flame holders and members of the many Indigo Children Flame Keeper groups that are most immediately capable of successfully fulfilling their appointed crisis intervention universal service contracts in cooperation with the Signet 12 Inner Council 3 Flame Holder team, will be those entrusted by the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Ecadic Master Council to serve as the Surface Earth Administrative Branch of the Azurite Universal Templar Security Team. The now successfully awakened and Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Ecadic Council endorsed 3 Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister CDT plate speakers flame holders who work cooperatively and in concurrence with each other and with the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Yana Sikhatic Master Council and Iyani and Maharaji Master Councils, and whose integrity has never been in question among the Midi Guardian Race Councils who respectively requested their services, will remain as the primary surface earth source of Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister contact throughout the 2002-2017 stellar activation cycle period. As part of their common Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Universal Service contract, they have been asked by the Janus Ikadic Master Council and have agreed to assist the Iyani in bringing to surface Earth the Iyani Inner Earth Contact Course over the next 3-year period. The Iyani Contact Course, to be first introduced in workshops beginning in summer 2002, will provide the tools for those working with the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister teachings to begin exploring the opportunity to engage safe and tangible personal contact with members of Inner Earth and Palladia Iyani Master Council Guardian races. The present Dance for Life workshop program, the forthcoming 4-volume translation of the Mahabharata Textbook 1, the 2003 Speaker 1 contract, and progressive CDT plate dispensation books to be translated by the 3 endorsed Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister CDT plate speakers are the beginning steps to creating a genuine personal contact relationship with the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Iyani races. Such a relationship will be extremely invaluable, if not intrinsically essential, should the need for Iyani Maharaji evac intervention arise over the next 15 years. Presently, the Dance for Life program and Iyani Contact course are simply being extended as a loving invitation for spiritual exploration and development of spiritual joy within the dance of life, through which invaluable personal spiritual mastery skills can potentially be acquired. Such skills of spiritual mastery will also be recognized as basic survival skills should the sobering event of an Earth Changes evac drama emerge. And there's some technical notes on the flame holders. The original blue flame holder must be a full level 6 ordinate Eckhart by birth, capable of running the full ecadic, polaric, triadic levels of the Kundalini spectrum at critical mass once the ecadic codes are activated. Backup blues require a minimum of level 4 consummate Rishi DNA templates at birth, capable of running at least the first level of the ecadic matrix Kundalini current at critical mass via an Inner Earth level 6 Eckhart host matrix. Contemporary Speaker 1 is the original Blue Flame holder, having successfully completed Blue Flame Code and Speaker 1 contract DNA template activation and receiving conscious training with the Iyani since childhood, following a 400-year period of specialized training prior to the present Eckhart birth. Blue Backup 1, an Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Elohai Elohim consummate Rishi, encountered health problems in childhood that would have prevented her from fulfilling her commission should the need have arisen. As previously mentioned, Blue Backup 2, an Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Elder Consummate of the Janus Signet 12 Inner Council, was recently reassigned to fulfill the Violet Flame Holder and Speaker 3 commissions. The original Gold Flame Holder must have a minimum of full level 5 Elder Consummate ordination at birth, capable of running the full polaric level Kundalini at critical mass once the polaric codes are activated. As mentioned, the original Gold Flame Holder, a Gold Order, Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Elder Consummate, fell to draconian modadic reversal due to karmic entanglements from the Egyptian period. Backup golds require a minimum of level 3 regent ordination at birth, capable of running at least the first level of the polaric level Kundera at critical mass via an inner earth level 5 elder consummate host matrix. As previously mentioned, due to the fall of the original gold flame holder and gold backup 1, and health issues preventing gold backup 2 from fulfilling his commission, the gold flame holder and speaker 2 contracts were reassigned to the other activated Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Eckhar as Ertanya, a member of the Janus Signet 12 Inner Council, as the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister Janus Master Council's last attempt to secure fulfillment of this commission for the 2000 to 2017 stellar activation cycle. The original violet flame holder must be a minimum of an elder consummate initiate, capable of running the full triadic level Kundera at critical mass once the triadic codes are activated. The original violet flame holder fell to Nephilim monadic reversal in 1970. Backup violets require a minimum level 3 regent ordination at birth, capable of running at least the first level of the triadic level Kundera at critical mass via inner earth level 5 elder consummate initiate host matrix. As mentioned, the violet flame holder and speaker 3 contracts have been reassigned to the elder consummate who originally held blue flame backup 2 position. And I turn it back to Mac.
Did you get all that? Okay. The reluctant speaker. Not name it. Okay, next order of business, and they should be arriving probably right around the time this is finished, so our timing is perfect, is a technique that was scheduled for the weekend called activating the Merkaba of the first cell. And there's a little bit of intro which I'll read for you. This technique is designed to open DNA strands 1, 2, and 3 to facilitate opening of the fourth and fifth strands. It does so by activating the tiny Merkaba housed in the first cell located at the tip of the tailbone. Dan, you just woke yours up a little while ago. It activates the indigo imprint and allows body to bring through the frequencies of the Ki Rasha, the primal light, and the Kundera, the primal sound, in through the first 3 chakras, setting the grounding base for the Kundera. It's essential that you have completed the Mahara Seal technique before beginning this exercise, which we're assuming that we all have. So let's just take a moment now to bring up our Mahara Seal, reinforce it, and get it nice and strong. Okay, so I invite you now to just close your eyes and just to relax. Giving yourself permission to relax and taking a nice few deep clearing breaths. As we relax, just continue to breathe and gradually bring your attention to the 2 large Merkaba fields which surround you. The one above your head, electrical, spinning clockwise, that's if you looked up at its point, and the one below your feet, magnetic, spinning counterclockwise. If you look down toward the point, you can see it spinning clockwise beneath your feet. Spend a minute or so seeing, feeling, or sensing each of these pyramids of energy spinning around you. Get a feeling for their rate of spin, whatever rate of spin that feels right for you.
And as you do, allow yourself to notice the energy from their combined effect, feeding energy into your crown chakra. Without losing the sense of your spin rate, try to feel or sense the energy flowing down your central vertical current, all the way down into your tailbone, feeding energy into the tiny Merkaba located there. Spend a moment just feeling that energy there. Once you have a sense of these spinning Merkaba generating the energy flow down through the crown and central vertical current, feeding the little Merkaba, switch your attention to the big magnetic Merkaba spinning counterclockwise below. This corresponds to the downward pointing part of the tiny Merkaba in the first cell. Now you may feel a spiral of energy coming up from the earth core through the 12th chakra below the feet, spinning counterclockwise, all the way up and into the base chakra, and then into the tailbone, beginning to feed energy from the earth grid into the bottom half of the tiny Merkaba, feeding it. Once you have the rhythm of this counterclockwise flow set comfortably, combine your sense of the electrical Merkaba spinning clockwise above you with that of the magnetic spiral flow coming from below. Work to hold your awareness of both elements of energy spin coming to feed energy to the little Merkaba in the first of the 8 cells in your tailbone. While holding the speed and the flow of the 2 large Merkaba in your consciousness, include the rhythm of your breath in your attention span. And as you do, imagine, with every exhale breath, you are breathing energy into the little Merkaba, right down the central vertical current, into the first cell and into the little Merkaba. As you continue to do this, the little Merkaba begins to spin, mirroring the spin of the both large external Merkaba fields around you. Don't need to worry about the spin rates or the ratios. The Merkabas know what they're doing. What they need is energy, and you provide that with your active breathing. So with every exhale, become more conscious of your feeding energy into the little Merkaba. The electrical element will respond and speed up. As it does, it will control its own magnetic spin rate. Continue to breathe with it until the upper electrical part of the tiny Merkaba seems to burst into a sphere of light. Continuing to breathe, you'll build this effect, and the sphere bursts forth. It will gradually look a little like the planet Saturn, sending rings, pulses of energy out around itself. These in turn becomes as rays of energy emanating out from the tiny Merkaba. This begins the activation of both parts of the D1 Merkaba that correspond to the seals of the D12 level. Once this happens, try to feel the sense of heat that has generated in the tailbone, like a warm, tingly feeling. Breathing the tingly feeling upward with an inhale breath, all the way up to the pineal gland at the center of the brain. With an exhale, push it out and feel the frequency pushing out through the pineal seals. Become aware that the tiny Merkaba has moved up to the pineal gland and is spinning there. Try and feel the sensation of the 6-pointed, 3-dimensional Merkaba spinning at the center of the brain, This will produce a frequency release that will assist the release of the cranial sacral seals, that will control your ability to bring in your higher consciousness into the DNA template. This actually changes brainwave patterns by introducing alpha and theta frequencies to the usual beta patterns, helping the body, the mind, and the spirit to work together to develop new neurological networks that will allow multi-vector perception to become an easier thing to accomplish while focused in the physical body. Now visualize the image of the 6-pointed 3D Merkaba as a 12-pointed 3D Merkaba. Picture this as a ball with 12 skinny spikes sticking out. This is actually a mathematical coding which accelerates activation of the DNA template, but one which follows natural rhythms. See if you can feel the difference in the energy signature of the 12 versus the 6-pointed star. Now, on an inhale, and on an exhale, push the 12-pointed star all the way down to the central column, through the 12th chakra, into the 13th chakra at Earth's core, and into the planetary shields. You may notice sound tones much different than the two-dimensional Hierophant when the 12-pointed star strikes the Earth core, due to the effects of energy released from the usual dormant parts of the planetary grids. Once you have gotten the 12-pointed star into the planetary shields, use the inhale breath to bring it up to the base chakra. Imagine where the base chakra stops, there's a little seal, a little tiny point where the base chakra points downward. Bring the 12-pointed star up to that point, locking it into your molecular structure with the first DNA strand template. Continuing to breathe and beginning to draw energy up from the Earth's core through the breath, you will notice that the column of energy, when you first breathe up, is much stronger than that with the Hierophant, and then exhale that energy into the base chakra. Repeat and notice a horizontal disk of energy, like the rings of Saturn, emerges from the point where the base chakra spark, the crystal seal, is located within the body. Inhaling again from the planetary shields, and pull the 12-pointed star up to the main vertical current to the second chakra, to the center of the bow tie-shaped cone, and exhale the rings of Saturn again from that point. Bring the 12-pointed star up a third and final time to the center of the solar plexus chakra. Inhale from the planetary shields and exhale to create the rings of Saturn effect. At this point, your biofield is open to greater energy and consciousness, and this is space you need to reach if you want to do well with mental bilocation. If you're going to remember what you do with your fourth dimensional consciousness and body, you need to have your third, second, and first dimensional selves open to receive these frequencies. This technique will help you. Okay, our energy work's now completed, so just bring yourself gently back, slowly and carefully.
And there's still quite a bit of things to cover today. Today's not going to be as difficult as far as yesterday was an intensive, as far as having to sit there and listen to a lecture all day, literally. That takes a lot of energy from both parts, from this side, but also from your side, having to sit there with not, when we break it up where there's technique in the middle of it and those kind of things, it's not as taxing on the body. You guys got bombarded with information yesterday, and for the people who are just coming into the program, who've not seen any of it, and there's a few there, it's like information saturation. Your head spins, and you can't even remember what it started at. If you're lucky, you can remember the last thing you did. So yesterday was an intensive day. When I do workshops, very rarely, unless there's a huge block of new material that's like on emergency release, where you've got to know this now, you need to know these techniques and things to get yourself functional. We try to have, if one day is going to be that intensive, we try to balance the next day out with more technique. Like we went to the beach today, so we weren't stuck in this room the whole day. Now, there's still more technical information to cover, but the hard stuff, the new stuff, and I'm saying hard because it was even hard for me. I had to get this information down in like 2 hours flat, get it on a graph, and know it enough to teach it to you guys, the next day or in a couple hours. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much for thanking me. That's not what I'm not looking for that. I'm just really looking for your understanding that when it gets hectic like this, it's not that somebody's trying to victimize you. It's like on this end, we're running ourselves ragged. We've hardly slept at all. We wanted to get you your manual. And at this point, you can take, there's more information in your manual. There's some of the pieces taken from other things that gets rid of the heavy stuff in the other things. There's somebody, if you're having a class and you want to teach it, you can teach them to get them through where they can do what you're going to learn to do right now, where they can get all the way up to speed, where they're doing the techniques of working with the Vecca codes and working with radio body, even though they might not have the understanding of Kathara behind them or of the larger drama behind them. It'll get them doing the stuff that they need to do. It'll make it easier for you to teach. And if they want more information, you can refer them to the Kathara course or the Templar course if they want the detail. And I just felt it was really important to me, and I was counting on that. I hope these guys care enough about having that booklet in hand, because if you get left here without a booklet in hand, there you go again. You have a sea of techniques floating out of Azurite Temple in various forms and various formats in different books. Where do you start? What do you do first? What do you do last? There was really a need to create a program. Like, all the techniques are useful, and they all serve different purposes in the body that are all complementary. But a simple format of how do I integrate this into my daily life where I don't have to just quit my job and just do technique for the rest of my life all day long. We've put that together for you. You have the booklet now. The booklet, I call it a booklet, it's about 60 pages. It's probably going to at some point be expanded, possibly into a small published book. I don't know if Brian at Granite's interested in it, but he might be. And it's basically a simplified course of the hardest stuff we've taught so far, right? Because we're getting into the atomic structure. This was new, where the information that we shared with you yesterday about the Mane, the Mano, the Mane, and the Ire. All of this information was new within the last week, scribbled all over pads because it was coming through in 7 different currents from the CDD plates. So this information is taking us to a point now where we're integrating all the spiritual stuff and structure stuff that we learned right into how it's working in our bodies. And we're being given the codes now, the Vecca codes, that will allow us to begin really making changes. The changes that if we work with these techniques over a period of time to build critical mass in the new energies that we're generating, they will begin to make changes in our noticeable physical being. They will, first of all, create the Merkaba field, but a very specialized Merkaba field. We're going to talk about that tonight because I want you to understand the difference between what a regular Merkaba field is that other people are teaching Merkaba and the Akasha Merkaba that we're teaching, because it's a very specialized form of Merkaba, and usually it's only reserved, in fact, it's been literally, I think, about 200,000 years since general populations were taught this type of Merkaba, because the Akasha Merkaba not only can get you through stargates to Tara, like the regular Merkaba can, it can sustain your fields where you could actually live in a place in the transharmonic time cycle, which is the inner earth time cycle. It allows you to hold the frequency. It's the equivalent of our D12 Mahanta Merkaba. So we're jumping from just learning how to get our Nethra Merkaba on the bottom going
to hopefully being able to create holophase Merkaba, which we'll talk about later. That holophase Merkaba in the natural, regular Merkaba structure is the second phase of Merkaba. And it would take you 2 more phases to get up to developing a Mahanta Merkaba, a D12 Merkaba. Holophase Merkaba is only a 6-dimensional Merkaba. You can get to Tara with that. You can get to density 2 with that, but that's all. You can't sustain your body in inner Earth for any long period of time in that type of Merkaba. You would need to be in one of the polarized systems because it can't hold the fully integrated frequencies that inner timeline, that inner Earth timeline runs on. This particular Merkaba, and it looks like this when it's formed around the body, but it spins. They both spin. This little contraption here, this is so cool because we had the drawing on, scratched on a piece of paper, and there's very specific proportions to it and that kind of thing. Az created this from the drawing. He actually brought it into physical form. We're going to be taught as we go along how to use this form in making things like this, because there's various purposes for this. One of them is communication. They're actually devices that can assist in communication with the Eoni races of inner Earth because they're coded to the inner Earth frequencies. This structure, however, is the structure. It's an outside version. What you're looking at is an outside version of what an Akasha Merkaba looks like around your body and also on each dimensional level of your body. You would have little tiny Merkaba like that that's actually flowing the life force currents through your body and through your cellular structure. You would have little Merkabas like that in the neutron windows. They would be actually the machines, the biological machines that create the current that moves those primal force currents through. In building this Merkaba in our fields, we're being given an opportunity that is very, very rarely given. Not only will we be able to possibly, as long as things go well on the planet where we still have the option of stargates opening, we will have the opportunity to be able to go into the halls of Mente stargates. We will have the opportunity to go through a passage that's called the Amareya Passage. The Amareya Passage, if you think of a Cathara grid with the 12 points on it, that's the one that comes down the right side, where it's the 12, 9, 6, 3 passage. This one jumps harmonics, which means it's a safe passage to wherever you want to go. Only the true ascended masters and the true Christic beings use this passage because it can't be used by any of the fallen angelics. They can't hold the frequency of it because it requires that type of Merkaba to move through it. So we are actually, this is the beginning of an invitation that I'm very surprised that it's being offered. Nobody told me that it was, and through the process of this workshop, it's become apparent that we are being offered. This won't be like an invitation to pop through tomorrow, but we're being trained here, offered the opportunity to train for something that is much bigger than what I thought it was ever going to be. I figured I would be very happy if I could get people to get through into inner Earth, into the Amente stargates, just to be able to have those experiences. But they're actually training us to go into the Amareya Passage, which is it's like a free ticket to the universe. The Amareya Passage opens into every stargate system, and only people who are in the master's course of training ever get trained in that type of Merkaba use, and that kind of passage. So I don't know why yet that they're bringing these teachings to us. All I know is that they are, and these used to be the most highly guarded secret teachings because there are certain things about them that you can't run a Merkaba like this on anything less than a D12 current. So it can't be used by fallen angelic races. When you work with Merkaba structure like this, they can take the technology, but they can't make it work because they can't activate the frequencies that it requires to run. But when we're working with the Mana, the Mane, and the Ire, those frequencies on the lower levels of their manifestation can be used and twisted, and that's what a lot of the false ascension teachings are doing. They're teaching you how to ascend right into Phantom Matrix and telling you that's going to be a good thing. So we are on a very special path here, and I know that path leads to the potential of walking through, literally being able to transmit your body and bring it back on the other side into inner Earth, where we actually get to visit that place. That place is a physical place when your body is calibrated to a certain frequency, just like this place is physical. Physicality is really an illusion, no matter where you are, but you will see as solid what's one dimension below your station of consciousness. This particular Merkaba structure will not only allow us to go into inner Earth, but inner Tara, inner Gaia, and all the way up if we wanted to. There's a Merkaba that can get us out. So the people who have contracts in this life, and eventually you come to understand your own contract. You come to feel that, I feel a part of myself that knew what I came here for. And you'll get information progressively. Your own avatar levels will release information to you. Some of you came to get out completely. Others came to take a tour and see what it's like on Tara or maybe Gaia. But the people who have come to really just, they want to ascend this time. They want to do the Ascended Masters things and maybe come back once they have their codes where they can have more frequency available and things like that. But this is the Merkaba that you get out with if you want to go all the way out. So we're on a journey here, and we're on a journey together. And it centers around Merkaba mechanics. Merkaba is a part of our everyday life. It's a part of the way reality forms itself here. We have everything in manifestation has a Merkaba field. Not everything has a Merkaba vehicle, however. A Merkaba vehicle is different from a Merkaba field in that Merkaba fields are the cones of spiraling energy that surround any object in manifestation, that create inside of them that form constant egg space where the manifestation takes place. But not all Merkaba fields are capable of merging together and creating a transharmonic set of frequencies that allows what's inside that bubble inside of them to actually go up into another harmonic. Like, there's a lot of things here on the planet, objects and things like that. They still have their Merkaba fields, but they won't be vehicles. They won't become vehicles because their templates that those Merkaba fields are built on don't have enough of the coding to go up higher in the dimensional scale. That's why things tend to, in stellar activation cycles, when you have a 3-day particle conversion period, which happens at a certain point in stellar activation cycles, you will find that certain things just disappear because they can't hold the frequency. They didn't ascend. They just demanifested because they couldn't handle the frequency coming in. This Merkaba, it's funny, I'm looking at it and it keeps catching my attention because the structure of this is a little tiny version of what some very special places look like. There are structures in inner Earth that are called the crystal pylon temples. The crystal pylon temples of inner Earth are the places where the halls of Amenti stargates are located. They are literally the temple structures in which they're like large crystal generator plants where the halls of Amenti stargates open and close within. And the inner Earth gates regulate the Templar here. Now, there's been so many problems with the Templar or the planetary grid system here for so many thousands of years. This is why the inner Earth gates had to be closed, because if that problem came into there, the whole place would go down. But the structure of that Merkaba, like looking at it in a tangible outside yourself form, this is the structure of the inner Earth crystal pylon temples, except they're huge and they're made out of selenite crystal and like the size of buildings. You think of the Empire State Building, that would be like a small one compared to some of the crystalline structures. And they are shaped and carved into that form to hold frequency in a very specific way. Now, we're not going to be turning ourselves into a solid Merkaba. We're going to be building progressively this Merkaba field within our fields. To do that, we have to clear the mutations that are in the DNA templates, because this requires a full 12 subharmonic activation of each dimensional level. That means beings like with a base 8 gene code or a reverse base 8 gene code, like a lot of the Anunnaki races and the Draconian races, they could not even form that kind of Merkaba, because in their DNA templates, they only have 8 sub-frequency bands that can run instead of the natural set of 12 that the Universal Divine Blueprint is built on. So in the process of learning to build this in our fields to where we can begin to get the knowledge and the privilege that goes with being able to activate that, we'll progressively, layer by layer, clear the parts of ourselves that are holding the distortions that would block the formation of this structure. Now, regular Merkaba, the regular fields that most people are aware of if they've seen any Merkaba teachings out here, are basically structured something like this. Now, this has a lot of information on it. That's why you look at it and go, what is that? We're working on getting more clear ones where you have several layers like that aren't shown together so you can see the structures. It's basically a star tetrahedron shape thing. Looks like a Star of David on a flat plane, but it's actually, it's a star tetrahedron, which means there would be 3 planes to the spiral coming up, and there would be 3 planes to the spiral coming down. This diagram is important because it shows you a bit about Merkaba's relationship to other things. Now, in our anatomy, we have talked about the shields. Yesterday we talked about, when we were going through the anatomy, we have the scalar grid templates that, the universe has them, the planet has them, and so do our bodies. We have our own scalar shields. The shields of our bodies are directly connected to Merkaba. The shields are the control mechanisms for Merkaba, And Merkaba is you can call it a natural biological machine that circulates the primal currents and the primal consciousness through our fields. You have these rings that are shown here in the diagram. Let me find my pointer. I actually have it. Somebody gave me a pointer. I keep forgetting I have it. Oh, 1 2 seconds. I have it here somewhere. There it is. Okay, here we go. Okay, there we go. These things. These in this drawing are showing you the shields. There were other charts that we saw yesterday where you saw like 4 little circles like this lined up next to a body with a Cathara grid in it. These are the shields. Looking at them is how they would be around the body with the Merkaba. You'd have your Maharic shield down here. This is the thing when we're doing Maharic shield activation to bring up the Maharic seal. We're activating this. That is literally our universal shield, the part of our anatomy that plugs right into the universal divine blueprint template. You have the next one up here. This is your telluric shield. That's the one that controls what's called the Nadahuva body, or the dimension 1, 2, and 3 density 1 aspect of self. Now, the Dance for Life course, the information and the techniques we've been given here are specifically for integrating and clearing and activating the radio body in density 1. So what we're going to be doing, when we use these techniques, even if we're not thinking about our Merkaba while we're doing tones, this is what we're bringing into activation, this piece here, because we're activating our telluric shield. Now, when we go into the other, for people who want to stay with this program and go into the next level, which will be the Dance for Love, that will begin this process of fully activating this shield. And then the next one, the Dance for Freedom, will be fully activating this shield. And then the final one, the Dance for Joy, will be finally activating this whole shield. Because right now, when we activate our Maharic shield, if you look at the shields, they're kind of like bullseyes. They have these, if you could look at them and visualize them as being crystalline structures made out of pretty little crystal points that are arranged in very specific, intricate geometrical designs. That's the mathematical template that tells the consciousness and the primal life force currents that our body is made out of, tells it what way to bend light and what way to move sound in order to create the three-dimensional hologram. What we're doing when we're activating the Maharic shield right now is we're actually activating this little part of it around here, not the core at the center, just this little band of it right around in here. And there's many other bands that would take it out. It goes out hundreds and hundreds of feet once you get it fully activated, and you can learn to expand it. You can actually expand the Maharic shield below your feet to literally wrap around the planet. So this is, we're not activating to that level yet, because to do that, to activate all of this, requires progressive activation of each of these, because each of these are mathematical templates, and if you squished them all down, they would be in here. All right? So this shield holds all of the information, mathematical information, of the other shields as well. So to get this activated, we need to progressively activate these as well. That's why we're doing these 4 parts of this course, where we will, one at a time, we will activate each phase. And we're not just activating. You can activate a Merkaba, but if your DNA still is holding mutations, if you still are not able to open the neutron windows in your cells, if you are still holding reverse matrix coding in your template, in your DNA template, and if your radio body does not have all the natural currents flowing through it, if any of your ki or your chi or your mana or any of that is blocked, you're going to create a mess when this activates. What you're going to create is, this would look like a thing with holes all the way through it. If this was like a solid cone of energy that's spinning, you would have holes and rips all over it. Those frequencies that couldn't come in that were supposed to be there. What that would do is create a very unstable Merkaba field that would progressively start to pull energy out of your body rather than feed it into it. It would create illness and sickness. This is why some people have very bad Kundalini activations when they take certain courses that don't use Maharic seal. The Maharic seal begins the process of putting the divine blueprint back, so you get all the frequencies, at least temporarily, into your body that you need. When you're doing this type of work without Maharic seal, you are literally activating a broken Merkaba. And when you do that, you can get parts of it to activate, but some will spin in reverse, some will spin lopsided, and you can really, really harm your body that way and your consciousness. Now, what's interesting is this diagram can help us understand where the shadow lives as well. We talked about the shadow part of the self that has to do with the DNA template reversals that are all attached to this eye of the jackal implant that's controlling the planetary Merkaba fields. What this creates in our DNA is a whole bunch of DNA strands that are shut off, and the ones that are active are right now running on reverse. As we're activating DNA strands now, what the fallen angelics were hoping would happen was we would continue activating up to the 8th subharmonic in each of the first 4 strands and do it on reverse, which means we would be living in phantom matrix by the end of this stellar activation cycle under the great overlords, some of them named like Jehovah, some of them named Allah, all the different ones that have personified themselves down here and represented themselves as externalized God figures that we're supposed to worship. None of those were truth. They took true teachings, and they took true spiritual teachings, manipulated them for their own purposes in order to trick us into this final fall. What they have orchestrated from the beginning was an attempt to make the fallen angelic, the angelic races become fallen angelic races, because we were in their way of taking over this time matrix. The human race was created as a guardian race to protect this time matrix from falling into the black hole system. So from the moment of our creation, it set us into a situation where we were here to run the divine intention, the original intention for this time matrix on behalf of the Christos and on behalf of Source. And that meant that the others who were not doing that, the others who wanted to not do that and who were more interested in abusing the privilege of having creation here, immediately took a very strong disliking to our races. This is a very long battle that we've been involved in. What's happened in this battle is you can look at what happened to our Merkaba right now as like having battle scars. We have a lot of rips and tears and things where things were poked in where they didn't belong. And we get very tired. When our Merkaba isn't running the right way, it's cutting off our life force currents. When we have those blockages in the cells, our cells aren't getting enough life force energy, what they're supposed to have. That's why our bodies fall apart. In stellar activation cycles, that whole process of bodies falling apart happens more quickly. Everything is accelerated. New frequencies are coming in. If your body and your DNA template can't hold those new frequencies, it makes more holes in your template. Because when the frequencies come in, they act like a sledgehammer on the little crystal templates that are your DNA strands. If you have the receivers open, that frequency from the higher fields will simply come in and flow through, and you will begin to expand. You will grow with the planet. You will go, open with the stellar activation cycle. But if the receivers in your DNA template are damaged, those little scalar waves can't wake up to hold the new frequency. The frequency comes in like a sledgehammer and builds up, hits critical mass, and begins to crush more of the DNA template. Literally, as if you took a hammer to crystal and shattered it. When that happens, you get more holes in your biology, more holes in your atomic structure, more holes in your consciousness, and progressively, it creates a progressive de-evolution of your consciousness. This is how we get trapped in time. This is how we end up stuck in physicality, and eventually the physicality dies. It can't sustain under those conditions. But the consciousness is still there. But the consciousness can't get itself out of the density that it's stuck in, so it progressively fragments more and more unless somebody tries to help it. Now, our human race is in a position where there's a lot of beings from other places helping, because if we didn't have help right now, all of us would become a phantom race living in the phantom matrix. And because we were the appointed guardians in this time matrix, you have the basically cosmic police going down for the count, and you're going to have the lunatics running the asylum completely. And that's what's going to that's what the fallen angelics would like to see happen. It's not in their best interest either, but they don't understand that because they forgot the lessons of oneness. They don't realize that they can't, all they're going to do is destroy themselves as they continue on the path that they have been on. They don't want to know and they don't want to hear it, and that's unfortunate. But it still comes back to, we're in the middle of a wonderful drama in certain ways. It can be scary in other ways, but it's wonderful because we've waited for literally 250 billion years for this point in time, when the races here could finally say, game over, time for a nice, relaxing Christos space to live in, time to heal from this very hard learning and healing experiment that we've been through. Our healing comes from healing our bodies, because if we heal our bodies, we can begin to bring the rest of us in so we know what to do, so we remember what we came here to do. We all agreed to come into this drama. Nobody's been victimized by this. They chose to come in, every one of us. Now, most of us have no clue as to why. And you think about it, why in the world would I have chosen to do this? And if you look back at your life and it happened to be not very pleasant, you say, what was my problem? Was I having a really bad day or something? Or is it just like off in clueless land? Sometimes we've been out of density for so long, when we opt for missions like this, we forget how bad it can be when you're stuck in density. When you get up there and you're floating around and you're free and you know you create everything and you know you're the master of your hologram and you can go in and out of the holograms when you want to and you have all that available to you. It's like when a mother gives birth to a baby. When the baby first comes out, don't ask her to ever have another child. But after a year later, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have, little Joe have a brother or sister? Because you tend to forget how bad it felt when you were in the middle of it, right? Well, when you're an ascendant master person, and we all have that level of our identity still up in those frequencies, when you're up in those spaces and you make decisions to put part of yourself down here, you can be a little bit out of touch with how very real this illusionary hologram can be when we're stuck in it. And you can get very tired when you're roaming around bouncing off walls trying to figure out how to get out of your own hologram, because now that you're here, you decided it wasn't a good idea. Our race has been here in that situation like, oh no, what did we do? We agreed to take on these karmic patterns of these other races so we'd understand them better, heal them in ourselves, and then we would be able to heal them in those other races. That's why we got into this. We had good intentions. We underestimated how difficult this challenge would be, because it has been an awful challenge that lasted in terms of linear time progression much, much longer than anybody expected it to. Now, when we get back to our personal healing, it helps to know that in our Merkaba fields, just like in our DNA, just like in any other part of our anatomy, those reversals and the part of our templates that are twisted and reversed are holding a part of our consciousness, a part of the Manau consciousness, a part of the Ire, and a part of the Mane, and a part of all the other little pieces of the frequencies that hold consciousness. They're holding them in reverse, in chaotically arranged patterns. So there's this part of ourselves that is attached to ourselves that is, imagine yourself if you went crazy. All of a sudden your brain wasn't working right and your chemicals were flying all over the place, and no matter what great person you might be, in that state, you're literally, the structure of energy around you was making you unable to think clearly. It's like when a person gets Alzheimer's and they were like a brilliant person, and all of a sudden this disease takes over their brain, and they're still a spirit that has wonderful knowledge and a great spirit, but they can't express it in the form that they're in. This is what our shadow is like. It's like a piece of ourselves that has gone through a shredding machine. If you want to think of paper shredders, that what was whole, a whole sheet of paper, let's say, was put through this machine, and that machine has been the reversal complex as it's running through the planetary grids in our bodies. And it shredded it up in pieces. It made confetti out of it. But it's like confetti floating around there, still a part of our field, and it doesn't know how to interact with itself anymore. So little parts of the identity that was held in that energy will accrete. They'll pull together, and they'll form like little sub-personalities. Everybody has little sub-personalities running around in their DNA right now. Parts of their shadow that are not integrated yet. And this is where we get a lot of confusing impulses. This is where we get that heart versus head thing. One wants to do one thing, one wants to do the other. This is where we get a lot of conflicting things in ourselves. This is where we get, and this was done purposely, there's a very specific pattern in the Eye of the Jackal implant in the grids that makes it so you will get an extra layer of polarity no matter what you think. So if you think a thought that normally you would just be able to have that thought go on its natural course, that thought will polarize, and you will literally get a part of yourself that says the opposite. One part says, I'm a spiritual being. The other part says, no, I'm not. I'm just a mortal. That's nonsense. I mean, everybody goes through this usually in their wake-up cycle when the spirit and the ego have an issue with each other, because the ego is usually more in communication at first with the shadow aspect of identity. So you have your shadow through the emotional impulses talking to the ego saying, yeah, this is just the reality, there's a way out here. And you have your spirit saying, hello, there's other worlds. You're a part of other worlds. You have a soul. You have all these wonderful things about yourself. And the shadow says, that's a lie. I won't even believe that, because I know I'll just get disappointed. So you have this polarity happening. Every thought we think right now, our manifestation process has been so messed up by this extra polarization that every time we intend to create a good thought and we attempt to do it, we create a part of the good one, about one-third good thought, and you end up with 2/3 of its opposite. And what it's doing, it's sending our thought forms to parallel Earth, which is interesting, which means a part of our shadow is directly connected to parallel Earth. Parallel Earth right now is heading for pole shift that can't be stopped because it has gone under control of fallen angelics that decided to make their presence known publicly. All right, over there they had an ET invasion. And that was what was on the agenda for here. but we have made changes in our timeline compared to what at the same time that they went through that have already changed the potential outcome of what we'll experience. So hopefully we don't have to do that. But it doesn't change the fact that a part of our shadow lives on parallel Earth right now. There's a part of ourselves that's connected right to our DNA that has been hijacked and twisted and has a manifestation in parallel Earth. And that part of ourselves needs to come back and be integrated. Because if we can't integrate and reclaim that part of ourselves, we will not be able to fill in the frequencies that allow the Merkaba field to build. Which means we might not get sucked into parallel Earth and Phantom, because that's where parallel Earth is going in the Phantom. But we will not be able to get out of here either. It means if this place went into pole shift or something, we would not be able to go through gates to get out. It means we would get fragmented here again, where we'd have to be awake here in the body again. Now, the shadow, in terms of Merkaba, you could imagine this as a nice rainbow-colored, spiraling field of energy. And this one spirals energy up from the Earth and sends it up and up and up and out. Okay, that's what your bottom one does. There's a part of this that actually, instead of being this way, there's like a part of this is actually turned the other way, where the point is up here, and the other part is here. And if you take half of this and flip it around and point it the other way, it makes a cube. It makes a square. And a square can't blend with the other frequencies that are coming in the cone shape from the top. Our shadow lives in this other little piece of our Merkaba that isn't integrated. It's literally the same frequencies of our Merkaba turned upside down in reverse. They're mathematical programs running in reverse, where you're supposed to have D1, you'd have D11. That kind of thing, where it's totally inverted. Now, this is the part of ourself that holds that twist in consciousness, where every time you say, I'm going to have a good day today, I'm going to think positive thoughts, and the other side says, I'm going to think negative thoughts. So they're always in power struggle. That's where the power struggle is coming from. If you looked at it in terms of the auric field that would be around your body, that energy egg that's actually inside of these structures, these would be much bigger around you, but the paper was too small to show it. But the energy egg that you exist within, the auric field levels and the radial body levels, it would be like you have your regular egg, and then you have this other smaller egg, and it's smaller and shorter and more squashed down because the dimensional frequencies of 9 through 12 are missing out of it. So it's only a base 8 egg and a base 8 Merkaba that goes with it. Your shadow lives in those places. That's literally, it's made out of particles and units of about 5 dimensions worth of frequency right now. This affects us all the way up into our soul bodies, up into Tara. And if the activation of the reversals keeps going, it would also affect our Gaian bodies, which means our oversoul bodies that are in density 3. This is a big problem. This has been going on for a long time. It's not a little, oh dear, we have a little problem, let's go fix it. We've been trying to fix it for a long time. But now we have the technologies back on planet to be able to fix it. I've talked about it before in other workshops, but for the people who haven't heard any of it yet, the reason we can fix it now in this time frame is because for the first time since 208,216 BC, we have D12 frequency back on planet. That frequency could not run through Earth's stargates since there was a major crash during a stellar activation cycle, major pole shift and a whole bunch of other messes, where this planet could only run 10 dimensions of frequency, which means it could only run a base 10 program. It couldn't run 12 sub-frequency bands in each dimension level, which means it could not anchor the frequencies of the D12 Maharata Divine Blueprint. And since that time, we were cut off from being able to clear mutations out of the planetary grids and out of our own systems, because you couldn't bring in the D12 frequency that would reset the pattern to its natural divine blueprint. This is how it got so bad, because once that happened and once that was done, we progressively turned into a miasmic mess. The planet turned into a miasmic mess. And we, at this point, because certain things were successful that the guardian races have done, and because certain groups here woke up enough, even if they didn't understand the whole mission, to do the energy work with the grids that allowed the D12 frequency to anchor into the planet. And it took place on January 1st of the year 2000. That was the first time this Templar has been able to hold and run and receive D12 frequency. And that's when the Cathara healing program came out and all of that, because all of that is based on D12 frequency. These teachings couldn't even be used for the last 200,000 years. You couldn't build one of these Merkabas out here for the last 200,000 years, and you could barely build one of the base 8 ones because of the way the frequencies are. So we're in a state of renewal right now. We're in a state of a great cleansing getting ready to take place, a cleansing that will happen in our bodies, and a cleansing that's going to happen on the planet, and that will look like I'm not sure what in the outside world. It may get rough, it may be very intense and dramatic, or it may actually move by rather smoothly. I wouldn't hold my breath waiting for that one, but I mean, we don't teach doom and gloom and fear and all that kind of stuff. It's useless to do that. But it's also useless to teach light, love, and cluelessness and teach people to expect, oh, yes, we're going to go through particle conversion, we're having a great cleansing, and everybody's going to wake up the next morning and go to work just like they did the day before, and everything will be just like it was. We're in the middle of a period of change, and those changes will probably be, at least in some ways, dramatic in the next 10 to 15-year period. It's not something to be frightened of. We don't have to go look forward to pole shift or anything like that. It's one of the potentials, not one of the ones the Guardians are trying to create. But if we build and repair our bodies and our Merkabas and get our consciousness back into our bodies, we will be able to move through whatever this period of cleansing in the world looks like. If it happens to go smooth and there's not much rocking and rolling, we'll be fine, and we'll also know what to do with ourselves and how to create more joy while we're here. It's about creating joy as well, because when you have the rest of you back into your body, you don't have that feeling of lack. You're not caught up in the money issue, because you know you can manifest what conditions you need to have the kind of experiences you want on the planet. And you know that if you don't have it, you're trying to teach yourself a lesson. So you just say, okay, self, what am I trying to teach me? Let's make this easy so I don't have to suffer. Now, if the best case scenario would be there would be no visible changes on the planet, except for maybe things would get happier. People start to like each other better, and everybody get along better, and there'd be less wars and less famine, and they'd get rid of the monetary system so they couldn't use it to manipulate and exploit people anymore. You think about the changes that would need to be here, that would need to, if you look at our world the way it is today, and realize that our world is moving into a return to its Christed society state. What do you think the level of change would be to get it from where it is now into a Christic society? Our whole world is built on an anti-Christic model right now. So I'm not sure how fast the changes are going to come. They may come fast and furious. That's why we're being given the trainings that we're being given right now, because just in case it goes in that direction, we will be prepared and we don't have to get caught up in what could be messy. We will be able to use the Merkaba that we build, this Merkaba, to get where we need to go and to create a protection field within and around our bodies that we can walk through things that other people won't be able to walk through. Part of our training is learning to let go and not be attached to outside things right now, material things. You can enjoy them while you have them, but if you really need to have them, you need to have that nice house, that nice car, because it makes your ego feel good, because you feel like you're important because you drive a Jaguar. People that are in that space, they're going to be really sad when their Jaguars don't work anymore, because that type of combustion won't work anymore on the planet because new frequencies are here and things in the elemental kingdom don't work the way they used to. This is part of the things. I mean, there will be changes when this planet goes under full divine blueprint. When all those frequencies are fully activated, you wouldn't be able to do fossil fuel burning and things like that to generate energy. You would have free energy systems available. But the technologies that we have right now that are built upon the anti-Christic model of reversed electrical currents, our electricity right now is running the reversed currents like they are in the Phantom Matrix. When that gets fixed, our electrical devices that were built in order to handle that current aren't going to work. Right? So think about all the things that electricity does for us right now. I keep thinking the thing I'll miss most are my washer and dryer. Because if anything, I could live in a very simple little house and I could enjoy that kind of life, but it would be really nice to just be able to have clean clothes. And I'm always so busy that if I had to pound them with rocks down at the stream and I wait for 2 or 3 days for them to dry, most of my family would be naked most of the time. So if we can realize that we're moving into a period of change, the change may come fast and furious, or it may be spread out over 50 or 100 years. It depends how the planetary grids hold up. Right now, there's so much mess going on with the fallen angelics that the thought of by 2012 or 2017, which is supposed to be like the peaking of the star activation cycle, to think that we're going to get through this scot-free and all the things are still going to be left standing that we have become so attached to is a little bit immature. And that's why I will talk to you about stuff that could seem scary. So I don't encourage you to be immature, because if it does happen to get weird and nobody told you that it might, and everybody told you that, oh, all you have to do is build your Merkaba, just do this, and you'll be fine, and you don't have anything to worry about, you would think I was a liar if things started to happen. All of the things that I've been able to teach you, that you've been able to work with, with building things and with, building your Merkaba and getting more consciousness into your body, you would probably throw the baby out with the bathwater if I stood up here and told you it was going to be all fine and then something big and bad happened. Well, what does she know? She told us it was going to be fine. You know what I mean? I won't do that to you. I won't tell you it's going to be awful either, because that's just as bad in the other extreme. We're facing challenges that right now we don't know which probable line of future development we're going to see. The line is a very broad range. It could go anywhere from complete pole shift, which would annihilate the civilization on this planet as it's done before. There have been pole shifts here before, when literally everything had to be reseeded because they were destroyed. When a full pole shift happens, there's something that is created within the frequency bands here. That something is called a red pulse. The reason why, there's some things will survive a red pulse, but most things, particularly if they're living biological organisms, will not. A red pulse is a frequency that's sent out through the solar gates that comes through the planetary Merkaba, because there's a natural connection between the sun, the Merkaba field of the sun, and the Merkaba field of the planet. It goes through from the higher universes through the solar gates. The frequency spirals through into the planetary gates in the planetary body by the star gates. Now, if there's anything in the planetary Merkaba, once the solar Merkaba and the planetary Merkaba start to meet, which is called grounding the stellar bridge, that took place on January 1st, 2000. If anything goes wrong with the planetary Merkaba, if it goes wrong to such an extreme that the D1 frequencies, the first dimensional frequencies, which are the red frequency spectra, the red wavelength spectra, if they cannot anchor properly in the template once they've started to move in, it builds up this frequency, this D1 frequency current, that when it hits a critical mass, it releases in a burst like a wave that runs through the planetary grid and through the atmosphere. And it vaporizes just about everything in its path that's not made out of rock and water. I mean, it will evaporate water. It is a heat pulse, but it's not a heat that can be detected. And this has happened before, partially, on this planet, where the civilization had to be put back. This would be the extreme of, if we look at the lines of future probability that are open to us right now, from our point in vibration and time to what our future may look like. That would be the worst extreme. If it went into that extreme, what we are learning right now would prepare us even for that. In a Merkaba like that, you would be able to, first of all, go through into inner Earth, so you weren't on the planet when the pulse passed through. But if you happened to be part of the team that was going to stay on planet to help keep the field stable, you would be able to have a red pulse run through you and not affect you. You wouldn't get vaporized, it wouldn't harm you. So, worst case scenario is it would go that bad on the planet. This will still allow you to function. You still will be able to hold your being and your power together and not succumb to the victim-victimizer drama that might play out. Now, there's a lot of lesser worst-case scenarios. Might have a bit of earthquaking instead of full pole shift. Might have a little pole shift instead of a big one. Nobody knows which probability it's going to go into right now. Now, if we completely go up the other spectrum and we get no pole shift, let's say it's stable, then there's a whole new set of things. Here we are with all this new knowledge coming back in. All the ancient knowledge is coming back. All these people are waking up, and you have Illuminati running the planet, and you have fallen angelics controlling the Illuminati. And you have a whole bunch of races waking up and wanting to do the Christos thing. This could cause some real problems politically. You could see wars and things as this tried to work itself out. So when you're in a cleansing cycle, like where our planet is right now, it is definitely, one thing is guaranteed, it will be a period of change. And the change tends to come in bursts, rather almost like, you know how when the airplanes hit the trade centers, I don't know if everybody reacted that way, but I know a lot of people who did, and I did too. It was just like, stun factor, wow, wasn't expecting that one. I mean, we were warned that some stuff was going to happen, nothing directly specific, but boy, was that a surprise to watch those planes crash into those towers and watch those towers fall down. It was just the most amazing wake-up call. What happens with things like that are there will be energy currents of conflict that are building up and building up and building up, and there will be a point in time when they're focused to explode. In stellar activation cycle, that is amplified tremendously, where the ideas of one conflicting group with another, they build and build and build underneath the surface, and everything seems fine until that point where they hit a critical mass, and then they literally blow themselves into the manifest hologram, where you go, where did that come from? Wasn't expecting that. And you can really get shaken up by it when you see, wild political things taking place and things that, like, wait a minute, we're in America, you're not supposed to be able to do that here. Things are happening right now you're not supposed to be able to do here, according to our Constitution. If anybody's noticing, progressively, so we stay safe from terrorists, we're progressively handing over more and more of what used to be our constitutional freedoms. And this is just the beginning. And what's scary is most of the people think that's absolutely fine because they so very much believe, because there was such a great demonstration given, that we have to be afraid right now, that they will hand any power they have over to the government as long as the government promises to keep them safe, because their fight or flight button was pushed. So we're watching stuff. We're watching part of the changes now. As we go into this course of the dance four courses, we're going to learn how to have joy in the middle of that anyway, and not to worry about it, not to be stupid about it, where you say, I'm going to be in denial and I'm going to pretend none of the bad stuff is ever going to happen. I'm just going to focus on the good stuff. And then you really have a fall when you find things like towers blowing up and weird government things happening, and maybe your country gets into war when you never thought it could happen. If you convince yourself that everything's light, love, and clueless space, that nothing bad could happen because angels and God are protecting us all, the Jewish people had believed this. They had believed that God would protect them during the Holocaust. The Jewish people know now that their God might have loved them, but it wasn't able to stop that. We're in a mass drama here. And if we handle ourselves well, we can move through it with grace, and we can move through it with joy. That's what the teachings are about here. The things we've learned about the attitudes. They're the beginning of learning how to make the mental shifts of perception. We're shifting our perceptual filters. We have perceptual filters, ideas, that really operate on a subconscious level, that we've been trained, not just in this life, we've adopted them from other lives too, as to what ideas we're going to look at reality through. That's why we can all look at, like, you can take 10 people, have them look at the same thing, and each one of them will have a different interpretation of what it means. You can, like, put them in front of a piece of art, and the art it can be anything from a traditional painting that, well, that's obvious, it's like a woman and a dog, and somebody else will say, oh, it's a woman and a dog, but look what's being expressed by her dress or the expression of her hands, the way they're holding the dog. I mean, and the other person looking at it like, yeah, right, We have different perceptual filters, so it gives us a different perception of reality. When we begin to do this growth process and we begin to work with our body parts and work to heal our Merkabahs and heal our bodies, we're going to heal our minds too, which means we need to be willing to shift our perceptual filters if the ones we have aren't serving us. That means a willingness to let go of old ideas. If we can look at ideas like clothes or like Kleenex, it served you well when it was there and you needed it. But you may have grown past the point now where you don't need it. And if the idea is something you don't need, it's therefore baggage and it's getting in your way. All right? So we will go through learning different things, and the learning is going to come mostly from inside. You're going to find issues coming up inside of yourselves that your own self is motivating to try to show you, is this an old idea? Maybe I need to let go of that. One of the best ways the self has of showing itself where it's stuck is to bring people into the hologram that model that pattern for you. The people you might have the most issues with, if you look at what's happening with them and look at why they're having an issue and why it's making itself an issue in your life, if you realize they're mirroring for you a pattern that you're having down inside someplace, there's some piece of it. It might not be the whole thing. It might just be a little bitty piece. But there's something that in you that allowed them to manifest in your hologram. And they're doing you a service by showing you that piece of you. So you can begin to say, okay, what beliefs was that about? What is this person thinking that's causing an issue here? Some part of me must be holding a similar idea. It might not be the exact one, but it's similar. And you start just putting out the question. You learn to ask the right questions. Okay, and the answer might not be here right now, but do I have some ideas that have anything to do with this person, that they're showing me something that I'm holding myself back with that I don't know? You need to be willing to look for those things in yourself, and when they come up, be willing to say, okay, I'm going to move past that now. I choose not to entertain that idea anymore. Just as important as understanding the structure of your body parts and your multidimensional identity, just as important of learning the keys to the kingdom, which are the geomancy codes. Geomancy is another word for a symbol code, a mathematical symbol code that is made of living consciousness. All right, so when I use the word geomancy, it's the same thing as the living symbol codes that we use. You may, oops, here we go again, excuse me. Wait a minute. I just got this just in, that was you. Hello. You're talking to me. Oh. That was a new one. Oh, I didn't. I'm getting on with it. Okay, anyway. Yeah, anyway. We'll get on with the Mylars. I thought it was Ma. There's this really funny thing happening between us. We're starting to finish each other's sentences or saying things right before the other one was about to say it, and now we're starting to get the telepathic thing happening, and we're not trying. It's just emerging. You'll find some of this opening up more and more in your life, too, as you work with the codes. Okay, now, let's see. We'll move past that. So this is basically the Merkaba field, anyway, that we have to work with right now. We're going to be turning this shape into that shape as we progressively work with the codes. Now, when we get into the understanding Merkaba, I think I'm going to put the next one up that has the phases. The basic phases of Merkaba, some of you have heard this before, but the new people haven't, so I'll just cover it really quick. The phases of Merkaba. That means those spiraling currents of energy around your body. You have a big one down here that's called a harmonic Merkaba, and there's another harmonic Merkaba up in density 2, and another in density 3, and another density 4. This is part of our anatomy. You have single-dimensional Merkabas, little tiny ones that work on each dimensional level, and 3 of those together forms a harmonic Merkaba. Now, for a general Merkaba field activation, where your Merkaba fields get turned into a Merkaba vehicle that has the capacity to change your atomic structure into light so you can move your body out of this time frame, they form by the combining of the harmonic Merkaba here, the dimension 1, 2, and 3, which is called the Nethra phase Merkaba, with the next spiral that points down here. This one's the electrical spiral. This one's the magnetic spiral. This one would combine with that one. Actually, this one moves up in frequency and combines. And that forms what's called a 6th-dimensional Merkaba. That's called the holophase Merkaba. That was originally all we really had to do, was to create a holophase Merkaba, because originally what was supposed to happen on the planet, it wasn't supposed to get as, let's say, precariously perched as it is right now. We were supposed to be able to do anywhere from a 4.5, which would be just a part of this, just enough to get you through where you could ride on the planet as it went through the stellar activation, right into what's called the bridge zone, which is a frequency modulation zone that is a place where this planet connects to inner Earth in its lowest frequencies. That's what we were originally planning to look forward to doing here when the stellar activation cycle was intending to go smoothly. What's happening now is, if we build this isn't going to be enough right now to block out what are called the psychotronics. The psychotronics are frequencies that are being used in the planetary grids, and they're being sent through electrical lines, and they're being sent through televisions, or they're being sent through radios, and they've been testing them for a long time, but they're planning on turning them on full strength in after August of 2003. This Merkaba, this holophase Merkaba, would not be enough. Even half of it, even if you had the D4.5, which would be just a little part of this, would not be enough to block what those frequencies would do to you. Bless you. So, rather than just working to build first the 4th dimensional and 5th dimensional and the full holophase, we are going to move into building the larger one that has the ability to protect us during that stage. Now, we still have to build this in order to get that form, to get the Akasha Merkaba. We need to fill in all these frequencies and then go beyond them. And we're learning to do that by directly activating the Manau force in the body. Usually that would happen progressively in steps, and it could take years and years and years to do it. We're taking the fast route so we can get our Merkaba stable and strong enough so when this planet starts to have its little dramas taking place, we don't get sucked into the dramas. Now, normally, when we're building Merkaba, we evolve through a point where we fill in all the frequencies, which means in our template, in our telluric shield, our D1, 2, 3 shield, all of the dimensional frequencies would progressively activate. As we move through time, what we're actually doing is one little code after another in our telluric template is activating, and that gives us the linear perception through time. It's little moment points that flash on and give us the illusion of passing through time. Our growth takes place by what's called accretion, or bringing frequencies in, filling in the frequencies. The frequencies are dormant in our templates, and we come in at fetal integration with these templates, and through the course of our lifetime, we turn on more and more and more of the template and integrate those frequencies. The body grows and expands. That's where the growth cycle comes from, and we progressively move on. And if we kept going, if we didn't have the genetic problem that we do right now, we wouldn't die at all. We would progressively integrate all the frequencies down here. This would naturally build itself by your shields activating, what you're doing is you're activating your Merkaba vehicle. The shields and the Merkaba and the DNA all go together. If you're doing DNA activations, you're doing Merkaba activations. Okay? So we would normally go through our growth cycle here. This would fully fill out the frequencies, and it would naturally begin to climb in frequency where it began to integrate with this one up here, which is the soul body level. And we would normally start integrating these frequencies and see a linear course of time that would take us through time cycles that spiraled up here until we were completely out of density 1. That's the normal path of the slow path of evolution on the planet. Now, when we're doing the exercises to activate this Merkaba and fill in its frequencies, we're doing it so what could take lifetimes to accomplish, the frequency accretion, it would take lifetimes. We're doing it now, so we can literally accomplish in a year what it would have taken us several life cycles to do the other way. We have the right to do that. It's not that God said we had to be here for X amount of years and we're trying to change that. We chose how long we wanted to be here for, and we got hung up in a cycle that we've been here way past that deadline. So we have a right to make the decisions to activate our Merkabas faster. We have the right to make the decisions as whether we'll stay in density 1 or whether we're going on someplace else. When we integrate these frequencies with these frequencies, you have a 3-dimensional Merkaba that turns into a 6-dimensional Merkaba, and that's when your body can move between these two universes. Literally, you can move. You have Terra in the density 2 universe. That's the semi-etheric matter density. It's a less dense state of matter than here, but it's still a matter world. We would be able to move into the 6-dimensional frequencies. We could live on Terra, or we could live down here, because you can turn back off those frequencies in the DNA template to solidify your body again, to downstep, so you can come back down. So you have mastery over 2 universes that way, where you can move between them at will, and you can create within them consciously. The next phase would be to integrate the dimensions 7, 8, and 9, which would be changing your holophase Merkaba, your 6-dimensional one, into a 9-dimensional Merkaba, which is the Quatra phase. It's called the Quatra phase Merkaba. Now that would allow you access to 3 harmonic universes and all the planets and gates within them. Okay? The next phase would to be building the what's called the Mahanta phase Merkaba, where it doesn't show it on this chart, but up here you'd have it doesn't show the whole thing. You'd have density 4, where you'd build the 12-dimensional Merkaba. First it would be 11-dimensional, then 10-dimensional, then 11, then 12, and you would get a 12-dimensional Merkaba. And then you can go still vertically by building one that incorporates the primal light fields here, which is the 15-dimensional Merkaba. It's called the Rahanta phase. This one's called, the 12-dimensional is called the Mahanta phase. In the normal cycling process, it takes a long time and many lifetimes to get to form that Merkaba. Now, the inner earth Merkaba, what their reality fields are structured with, on and within, and what their Merkabas look like inside of them and around them, they all look like these two. This would be the smaller one, and the 15-dimensional would be the bigger one. What we're being taught to do is activate this with a specific coding. There are specific frequencies, because they're the inner earth time cycle. It's a time cycle all into itself, like a universe that cuts through between our universe and our parallel universe. And it's of a higher scale. It's a higher evolutionary place than this one. And the gates there have been sealed for a long time, because if they get invaded here, they could actually fall. Their matrix could fall, just like ours is in danger of falling. That D12 Merkaba would be a simple one in their world. If they had a scale like this in their world, which they do, that D12 over on our side would be a holophase over on their side. All right, so their D12 one is a lot bigger. They have 24 dimensions in it instead of 12, because they have double. They have what's in our parallel and what's in our universe put together. So they have 24 stargates instead of 12 in their Cathara grids and those in their universal Cathara grids and those kind of things. In the process of building these, we activate DNA strands. This is a little diagram to show you DNA strands. Strands 1, 2, and 3 goes with dimensions 1, 2, and 3. As you bring these frequencies activate in your DNA, in your tribal shield, or in your telluric shield. That's what I was looking for. Your telluric shield. It brings into activation strand 1 template, which brings into activation strand 1 chemicals, which brings into activation this part of this Merkaba. See, these are all connected. So what we're doing right now, everybody has 3 strands, minimum 3 strands activated. But instead of having, if you look at here, there's 12 little dots. There's 12 little base codes and 12 little acceleration codes in every DNA strand template. That gives us our natural double helix DNA configuration the way it's supposed to be, and we're supposed to have a minimum set of 12 double helix DNA strands. Those 12 would hold the frequencies of a full Mahanta phase Merkaba, which means we could at least go to D6 in the inner Earth time cycle. What's happening right now is instead of having 12 of these little codes activating in our strands that are even activated, right now we have 4 in each, because they have turned off, they literally completely turned off the codes that would correspond to dimensions and sub-frequency bands, 9 through 12, and then the remaining 8, they turned half off. So we literally are running around with half codes in our DNA that broke our chromosomes down and all of that thing we talked about yesterday, how the chromosomes are built on things called vector codes. They're different from VECA. They're called vector codes. They control the time vector flash lines that keep us in our physical bodies in one particular time cycle. Out of 12 vector codes that were supposed to form each chromosome, you had 9 through 12 turned off, and you had the remaining 8 cut in half and half turned off, and the other half reversed. So this mutation that we're carrying is very, very deep, and it's very personal. You can't decide, yeah, I don't want to be a part of this work because I don't like what it's saying, so I'm going to go pretend it doesn't exist. You're still going to go home with what you came in with, which is a base 4 genetic mutation that makes a base 4 Merkaba mutation that stops you from being able to build any of these. You can't even enter a beginning of a holophase if you don't have at least these 3 strands having the 12 dimensional frequencies. Now, if you want to go to Phantom Earth, all you need is 8. All you need is 8 of those codes turned on in reverse order, and that will build a shorter version of this. It won't have 12 subharmonics. It'll be smaller. And it can link with the same type of one that's in Phantom Earth that would only have 8 subfrequencies. That's what's being tried. That's what's happening on the planet right now as far as the Merkaba teachings that are being, and I have no problem talking about the people who are teaching stuff, okay? Now, the people themselves, the people who are teaching other ascension programs that we choose to have a difference of opinion with, I have nothing against those people. Half the time, the people don't realize, because what they're doing is they're channeling and they're listening to beings from other places. Now, there's one being I have a gripe with, because it's one of the greatest liars since the person took a fall, and that's Thoth. The Thoth teachings are all about creating a nice 8th sub-frequency band Merkaba so you can get yourself right into Phantom. And they're done with an arrogance and a supremacy and elitist attitude. This is, we've got the best information on the planet. And it's such a form of trickery. It's good if we become aware, and the people who are in communication with Thoth or who are working those systems, I don't hold them directly accountable for what they're doing and what they're teaching people to do, because most of the time they don't know, they don't realize themselves. Thoth didn't point out to them, excuse me, by the way, we're going to get people into Phantom, okay? No, they got suckered too. They got told that, oh, this is how you ascend. So they listened and they teach what they know. And we're in a position now where what you're learning now, if you have other metaphysical friends that are into like Archangel Michael or the Thoth stuff, you're going to have some real differences of opinion if you happen to believe the things that you're learning here, because they're teaching you that you don't need to know any of this stuff, because if you do, you're not going to be able to get hijacked into Phantom, and that's their objective. So anyway, we're building our Merkabas. We will build these frequencies in, but we will do it in an accelerated form with the specialized coding that allows us to go into and stay within the inner Earth timeline. So we'll not only be building this, clearing out the DNA, so we can build this, but we'll be building this with its additional frequencies at the same time. Now, I haven't had time to get, because this stuff was just new, to get a graph to put up, and there is a graph, a drawing of this new style of Merkaba that's in the books that you're going to be able to go home with. I didn't have time to get it on a Mylar yet. I don't think, they didn't come back yet, did they? Or did they, with the Mylars? They didn't get the Mylars off. Okay. Maybe before we have to leave here tonight, maybe the Mylars or the transparency on it will be back. It's just simply showing you that shape. And you'll see that it's built on a different base shape. This Merkaba, the regular type of Merkaba, would have a triangle base. They're like the little triangle bases with 3 sides coming up. If you look at these, can I do this with one hand, or should I ask you for help? Can you hold this up this way, please? This is a good time to show the shape. So we brought this because we didn't have the drawing to put up, so we can show you, what it looks like, No, just take this one up and show them the base shape of it. Like hold it up where they can see that shape, as opposed to a triangle on the bottom. like this, so they can see this way. It's in here, so they can see that part. Yep. And can you hold it up? Okay. See the shape of that? It actually has two triangles, two triangle shapes on the end, and this big wide space. It's shaped like a crystal. All right? It's the crystal Merkaba shape, where it has that long area. That long area in the middle is the extra set of frequencies that allows you to go into a system that has double the frequencies of a regular time matrix. It allows you to go into the inner Earth time cycle. So this form of Merkaba is built on different geometries. That's the base one. The reason this one is so small compared to the one on top of it, there's a very specific proportion of math as far as how they go together that's based on Partakai, the natural Christos Partakai phasing rhythm. Now remember we had Partakai units that broke down into Partakai and Partakam? Now if those units broke down evenly, when the Partakai unit becomes a lit standing scalar wave, a polarized scalar wave, if those were perfectly the same size, you would have static. You would have no movement. You would have no push and pull between the two pieces. So you would simply have a static universe where consciousness couldn't pulse. You wouldn't be able to move. Partakai, when a Partakai breaks down into a Partakai and Partakam, it breaks down into a ratio of 33 1/3 thrust electrical, which goes in one direction, which rotates clockwise, okay, like clockwise thrust, and 11 2/3 thrust magnetic. So literally, that is the Christos imprint as far as Merkaba spin, because Partakai phasing rhythm is the same rhythm that's your consciousness is going to pulse into manifestation on, is the same rhythm that your Merkabas are going to spin at. The natural spin for a Merkaba down here, for when we're just dealing with even the six-dimensional ones, the ones that most people are activating right now, the pieces of which they're trying to activate right now, you would have a natural on top, which is the electrical one that feeds frequency down in, it feeds the mana down into your body systems. That would be a 33 1/3 clockwise spin. The bottom one would be an 11 2/3 counterclockwise spin, because it's reflecting the natural Partakai phasing rhythm. Okay? Now, this one gets really interesting. The proportions in this, and why it's shaped so funny, where you got this big top and you got this little skinny bottom. It's like an umbrella. This one is based on those same ratios. So when you're making the top piece compared to the bottom piece, you have to take those proportions and mathematically figure how big would one be, what is the proportion between them, and how big would one be following that proportion in relation to the other, and cut your pieces, when you're making one like this, cutting your pieces the same size. Now you will naturally grow one of these when you get your DNA and your forces working right way in the body. But it's a very specific proportion that's based completely on the natural Christos Partakai phasing rhythm. That is the natural speed for Merkabas, the way they're supposed to spin, that allows them to create the accelerations or decelerations that would allow the Merkaba to bring the form within it up and down through the 12-dimensional scale. If your Merkaba can't spin fast enough because it doesn't have some of the frequencies in it, it's not going to be able to make the climb in frequency up to the next harmonic or the next harmonic. So when things are not built on the natural Partakai phasing rhythm of 33 1/3 over 11 2/3, they're not going to be a complete Merkaba. The Merkaba, reverse Merkaba, that it has to do with the phantom matrix, runs on a 34 magnetic over 21 electrical. Yeah, that is a complete inversion of what a Merkaba is supposed to do. Other life forms, they're from higher density fields, and they're from phantom matrix. They're ones that chose to conquer the universe on their own and decided they were going to use us as the fuel to do it. So the thing we're in the middle of right now is an amazing, it's a renaissance period. It's either going to lead to a new age of light or another age of darkness on this planet. And one of the best things we can do for ourselves as we work with these things. Now the stuff you're learning right here, if you went into a church that calls itself a Christian church, they'd say you were learning evil stuff. They would say this is the stuff of the devil. Excuse me. I'd say the same thing right back. And what really bugs me is you have a lot of Christian people. You have a lot of, bless them, Christian people running around. Now, I was raised Christian. my uncle's a priest. My father's side was Catholic, my mother's side was Methodist, and there was like a holy war in the family all the time. But we were not atheists or anything like that. I wasn't raised metaphysically in those terms. I was raised metaphysically because people from other places kept coming and taking me on ships and teaching me things. But, all right, here we go. Anyway, all right. You stop. He's dinging me. Was that you or is that them? Because I'm not able to tell. This is funny. I get interrupted sometimes, and it's very distracting because you have a line of thought, and it's like somebody else talking to you over here and say, wait a minute, okay, and, oh, shoot, where was I? It's like an interrupt of the currents, but okay. It wasn't you that time? Yeah, because I feel Ma with me. I feel him over here, but I didn't know if he was saying anything. He's just pushing a little bit. Okay, actually, we're not doing too bad. I mean, the things I'm talking about are part of this. Boy. Okay. How much time we have left? We're definitely going to cover that. Oh, we have time. Okay. That's good. That's no problem then. Let me see what sequence I want to go to.
You've got the master on in front of you, by the way. You do have a master.
I do have a master now. Okay. Oh, goody. Okay. There's one thing I do want to show people. Now, we don't have the Mylars of this yet, right? No? Okay. If the transparency comes back in time, we'll be able to do what's called Manow Technique 5. Okay. We finally got the first of the Manow codes in, and it's in your booklets. Okay. We're gonna, hopefully we'll have it to put on there in time. This one is called the no, it's the IAHAIA. IHEA. I believe it was IHEA, wasn't it? How it came through? Yeah. The IHEA code. And we're going to learn to work with this. Now, I'm hoping we have enough time, I'm hoping we get this on the transparency in time to do this here, because it requires looking at it. Now, if the books get back in time, we could just have you turn to that page. There's something called optical pineal induction, which is you focus your eyes in a certain way and you use your breathing currents to induce the symbol, the mathematical symbol that you're trying to bring in. You bring it right in through the pineal, and then you run it down your main vertical currents. And there's this, it's called Manu Technique 5. It is once per day. They're asking us to do it once per day if we really want to, participate in this program and get the frequencies the way they're supposed to be. And prior to any general salutations work or Akasha Manu salutations like the one we did this afternoon or any RRT work, we simply would do a Maharak Insta-Seal. Now, for those who don't know the Insta-Seal or the Quick Seal, there's also a pack in the back of your packages that you're going to get, and this is good for the people who already know this stuff, but you have to train somebody else that doesn't, that you're in that position. It will take you through these things. So if you see something like in the exercises we're doing now that you haven't touched base with, the basic things that you need to know are in the preparatory exercises in the back of this particular book. So we would do the Maharak Insta-Seal and then run the Akasha San sequence. Now, the Akasha San sequence are the magic words that we had in, I think that was technique number 1, okay, Mano technique number 1 that we were given. Those are the magic word sequences just as they were on the paper, where you have them in that sequence, where we're not changing the sequence like we do when we're using them in relation to salutations. And we would simply use these, repeating these sound tones over the whole sequence of them while doing optical pineal induction with this particular symbol code. I mean, you can take the code that's on the paper in your book and, tape it to your wall and do it. You don't have to do this for very long, but you tone and repeat the tones, and eventually you'll start to get the breathing rhythm. And you might want to start to playing with, okay, what was that? What am I supposed to say while I'm inhaling? Just to see if you can do it. It's really hard. I mean, I was playing with that last night, and I can't breathe in reverse like that. I kind of get hung up right about here. It feels like my lungs are too short and they won't hold enough air for a whole sentence. But I think if we play with this, it doesn't say in the technique right now to reverse to try to speak on the inhale coming back, but that's something you might want to play with it. It's very, very simple. What's nice about what we're being taught now is they're not 600-step techniques. When we first started, the Maharak Seal, the first one, I think it was 26 steps along or something. It took a long time. By the time you got through half of it, you fell asleep because there were so many steps, and also because you were generating frequency your body wasn't used to, and it was flipping you into the astral consciousness and putting your body to sleep. They're getting easier. The techniques, thank God, are getting easier than they were in the beginning. Now we still have to use them if they're going to work. But this one, we simply use a certain focus, and there's a little blur period that you slightly cross the eyes when you're looking at something. We almost get two images of it, and then a fuzzy space kind of happens in between. This is a space where you're actually blending. There's two currents that come out of your eyes, two currents of energy, of frequency that come out the eyes, and they kind of cross over. Well, you're braiding them together, and that's how you can access directly into the pineal. So when you're looking at this code and you're finding that focus, there's actually about 12 different points of focus that you can find the eyes are capable of doing, and you will see something different at every focus. Not just when you look at a symbol code, but when you look at reality. We're taught to use our eyes in one focus right now. We're taught to use our brains and our minds in one focus. That's why we're stuck here. We forgot the other focuses even existed. It's like having a TV and thinking there's only one channel when you actually have 500 that you can choose from. When we begin to play with the focus of our eyes, we're beginning to braid the currents that are just being held apart separately in full polarization. You can play with this. I mean, you don't even need a symbol code to look at. You can just say, what are my currents in my eyes doing, and like play with them. You're not going to get your eyes stuck. I mean, the old thing is like, oh, don't cross your eyes. I remember my grandmother used to say this to me, because I had to roll my eyes at her and cross them. Like, yeah, right. And she's like, oh, your eyes are going to get stuck that way. God's going to punish you. Your eyes are going to get stuck that way. They never did. But there's a technical skill involved in learning to find, first of all, and everybody's will be in a little bit different place. I can't tell you exactly how to look for each focus, but there are 12 different points of focus that the eyes together are able to focus on that will show different frequency spectrums when you start to work with them. Now, when you work with this one, the idea is to just blur them just slightly so you get this middle focus where it's like you see two images. All right, you see two of the same images, and they seem to cross in the middle, like forming a Vesica Pisces if they're a circle, but on a horizontal plane. There's a little fuzziness that occurs there, and that's a space that at first you don't want to hold it for too long because you don't want to harm your eye muscles because they actually might get stuck. I don't know if they get stuck, but they would get sore. Don't get stuck, just sore. But if you can find that focus for a little bit, and that's when you want to do the toning. Like when you find the focus, then try to use the breath and the tones to move it, because that's when you're actually braiding those currents and bringing those frequencies together so they can more fully bring the mathematics in its whole form. Because when you look at something, you're actually getting half of it in one eye and half in the other. You're getting a piece of each holographic pattern that you look at when you look at something. You're getting a piece of it into the brain, into the pineal, through each eye. When you do that blurred focus, you're actually bringing it together into one beam of consciousness, and it's more powerful than the smaller beams of consciousness that come out directly. So this exercise would be used with the exercise, it would be used right before you did the exercise that we did on the beach, which was the Akasha Manu salutation, where we use the tones to activate the Mani, the Manau, and the Ure in our bodies to begin that process. There's another part of working with these Veka codes, and that's the part that we didn't cover on the beach, and that's the Suriyas. Now the Suriyas we're just going to learn how to do, like beginning, there's like introduction to what the Suriyas are. They're the postures, the ways to move energy, literally move the body while you're doing tones and while you're spinning. You also don't have to do it while you're spinning. You can do it, if you use the Suriyas when you're just using the tones, you are still creating and sculpting sound forms. There are three basic Suriya stands, they call them, S-T-A-N-Z. A posture that would be one of the Suriya postures is a stance, S-T-A-N-Z. And there are three. I haven't had time to draw little bodies and show you in the book what they are. So I will show you. They're really, really simple. The first three are really, really simple. They get more complicated as you go up the frequencies. But for this particular course, we're dealing with the density 1 body, dimensions 1, 2, and 3. And there's a Suriya that goes with each one of those dimensional fields. For each of the harmonic bodies, each level of your Huva bodies, there would be 3 Suriyas in your divine blueprint. 3 basic movements that run, each one of those runs the dimensional current that it corresponds to in that set of 3 dimensions. And it also runs the 3 primal currents. One would be the Suriya that goes with the Ire, one would be the Suriya that goes with the Mane, and one would be the Suriya that goes with the Manau. So it's really a simple program, and we're learning the beginning parts. So you have these 3 lines of tone that we were learning in I think it's called Technique 1, Mana Technique 1. They're the ones that we were playing with and looking at and go, how do you pronounce that? That we sounded really good with. I mean, this group did wonderful out on the beach today for the first time going through those. It was neat, and I was getting a little prickly as my hairs were standing up on my arms and stuff because the frequencies were you were actually making the frequencies happen. And that's pretty good for the first time of trying to stumble through something with that many syllables in it that doesn't form a word you'd recognize. Okay, so we've learned those. You could use those alone with the suriyas that you're going to learn. Now, the siyurs are the pillars of light, of standing light and sound pillars. They're mostly sound that we were creating when we do the salutations, when we do the Merkaba thing, the salutations with the sound tones, with the magic word sound tones. If we combined a suriya with just the sound tones, we're not going to get that full pillar or standing wave, but we will get smaller ones. You can manifest thought forms this way when you get really good at it. There's going to be a course, I think, as we move along, that's probably going to get into using certain types of suriyas to create literally certain shapes, certain types of thought forms, and certain types of shapes in sound would be what you needed if you wanted to, say, make a car happen, or make a new house happen, or make a trip to the Bahamas happen. These would be these would be the forms, the thought forms that are made out of sound frequency, where you would put the intention in and then send it back to the man now, so it came out the way you wanted it to. Before we can get to that class, and they won't even give us the information of exactly how to do that until we first use this information. Because right now, if we were told exactly how to make a car happen, how to make a house happen, how to make certain things happen, the reversals that we're carrying would create a third of what we want and 2/3 of what we don't want. And it would send another part of us to phantom. Right now, every time we breathe, another little bit of our energy gets sent to phantom. And that's been going on for 25,500 years. Slowly, piece by piece, molecule by molecule, we're being fed into phantom matrix. Yeah. It's scary. I mean, every time you breathe, one part of you stays here and another part goes that way. And that's the part that's pulling on you. That's the part that's giving you urges and thoughts that you don't really want to have, and attachments to things that you don't want to have. Like people that get into these relationships, for instance, like abusive relationships where, they're like bopping each other off walls and really in the victim-victimizer thing. Most people get stuck in these relationships because one or both of them has the shadow running the show. Their shadow is literally drawing to them the things that will feed the reversals, that will hamper them, that will make sure that they stay in phantom, the things that are sapping the life force out of them, the shadow will be attracted to. And we all have a little bit of this in it, be it the chocolate cake that looks so good even though we know we shouldn't eat it, to the horrible relationship we allow ourselves to get into, to the point where we're so abused that we have to do something to get ourselves out. All of these things are feeding us piece by piece down into phantom matrix because our shadow is pulling us down. If we were to have our manifestation skills given back to us right now, without first having the skills to get ourselves clear, we would feed ourselves right down in the phantom matrix. You don't want to learn how to manifest things immediately with thought until you have a clear thought manifester to do it through. If you're going to lose part of your thought form every time you consciously try to focus energy and create something, you're better off learning how to fix the machine, the thought generation machine, which is your being, before you take that power back. The power will work naturally. It's still working now. Right now, we keep feeding the other side, even though we don't want to, because we didn't even understand the process. But most people right now, if they were given the keys to here's how you go manifest anything, there's a part of the shadow that would say, oh boy, and all of those things that the shadow felt it lacked, regardless of whether it might be in divine right order right now, to make them happen, it would be such an urge for the shadow to come up and grab that knowledge and that power and try to make things happen that would harm it, and it would also harm the overall plan. So we're going to be led into manifestation skills, but we're going to be led into them very responsibly, where we're going to learn to clear ourselves, we're going to learn to heal the things that get into reversals, we're going to learn to integrate our shadow, so then when we do regain that power, when that is given back to us, the knowledge of how to, the power is with us, we just forgot how to use it. It's like looking at a light switch and not remembering what it does. You can study it for a while, and you look at it stick out at different angles, and you poke out, what might that do? This is what it's like when we get our manifestation powers back. They're with us all the time, but we forgot how to turn on the light switch. We forgot what it did and what it meant. We will get them back, but we'll get them back in a very responsible way. Okay, now let's see, where do I want to go from here? If I was working on Mylars, I know where I'd go, but we're not there yet. Okay. Certain things. This is the one I want to show you too. You also, in your books, you'll have a drawing, a diagram that shows you the shape of that Merkaba, and you can see the six-sided thing that it's drawn on. It's not exactly a traditional, what do they call those six-sided things, hexagons? It's not a traditional hexagon. It has the stretch part in the middle, and that's the proportions that go with, the inner earth frequencies. But you have that there. You have enough in this booklet to where, even if you don't understand all of it right now, you can learn a bit more because there's some other pages pulled from other things that were already typed, that was on certain, they were already typeset, that they were on certain things, like some more about Merkaba and some more about this and some more about that. So you will learn enough to where you can get somebody through the basic course. You can take it and say, well, what does it say on page 1, right? Okay, we'll start here. In here, there's a list of, this is where you have the, let me find it, I have mine separate here. Okay, we have the Dance of Life, the 12 Lessons of Mastery. Now these are the things we've been moving through progressively from the time we started talking about this. Now, we've been talking all over the place, and in my workshops I tend to do that because it's, I don't know why I tend to do that. Probably it's just because of my personality. But if you're going to try to teach somebody this, or even if you want to know, figure out, okay, what did I learn and where does that go? You can look in your books. This sequence is followed. It leads you through 12 lessons. The 12 lessons of mastery start with the primal life force field, where you get into talking about the Manau and the Mane and those kind of things. There are a few of the diagrams in that section, in the books, that show you some of the basic things that you need to know. It goes from that to the emanations of the Akasha, where you talk about Partikai, Partike, and Partikam. So you got some of the graphs most of you have already seen put in with that section. This is so you have what you need right there to begin. If you want to sit down with somebody and explain to them why you're into what you're into and what is it you're into, this is how to do it. It goes through, the third one would be the all-oneness. We had that conversation about the all-one, and that'll come through. You'll all have your own version of how to explain that. Your own spirits will do that for you. Then we get into, the things we talked about, the cosmic light bulbs and sound bites, the 15 rays and the 12 domains and the 7 higher and lower heavens of creation. I put more information on the graph, by the way, from the one that was up here, so now it explains a little more about how those 7 higher and lower heavens are formed in the graph that showed that, so there's more information there. Gets into the Manau and the atomic life force connection, where you have that big atom diagram to start seeing where the currents are going and where they're supposed to be and where they're not right now because they're blocked. Then we have Kilans of Creation and the Godfire alphabet. Now, we haven't talked about this yet, and I just want to touch on it briefly. It's a part of everything else. Kilans of Creation. Kilans are those grids, those three-dimensional crystallizations that form of 3 flash lines from Partikai units crossing through each other. So they're Partikai grids, three-dimensional Partikai grids. Little Kilan units form Kilan codes, which are more sophisticated Partikai grids. These are standing scalar wave grids, crystallized scalar wave grids. These are what our shields are made out of. This is what the planetary shields are made out of. All right. When we get into fire letters, the fire letters are actually the alphabet of mathematical programs upon which those Kilans are organized to form different types of things. You have the cosmic fire letters that create the structure of the cosmos, and everything else will be built on that. To get into a cosmic structure, you have to take on the cosmic structure and become it. So your templates would have the structures from the higher dimensional fields all the way up to the primal light fields. Somewhere in your template, you would hold those. The fire letters are the mathematical programs, but they're also consciousness. They're part of the Manau, the Mane, and the Ire that take on the form, eternally take on the form of these mathematical programs. They are the consciousness that chooses, that allows for the manifestation to happen. The mathematics aren't dead and just numbers on a paper. They are literally a consciousness that holds this cognition and this intention to create. And it is through using the fire letters. We have fire letters in our DNA. That means we have consciousness in our DNA. We have the primal force consciousness right in our DNA templates, right in our shield templates. The fire letters of the DNA correspond directly to the fire letters of each dimensional structure. Now, in each dimension, we've talked about briefly, in the dimensional structure, each dimension has a set of 12 sub-frequency bands, and there are 12 full dimensions, which are 12 sets of full 12 full sets of 12 sub-frequency bands in the D12 Divine Blueprint, and there's another set that goes up with that second Cathara grid that goes up into the primal light fields and the primal sound fields and up into the Akasha. When we're dealing with fire letters, they would be the specific mathematical programs for each dimension, for each subharmonic in each dimension that holds the specific flash line rhythm. That mathematical, that's a piece of consciousness that is assigned, has assigned itself to making sure those pulses of consciousness pulse in just that way, at just that angle, in order to keep the dimensional structure alive. All right. The fire letters are also, the term is used to refer to the parts of the DNA that correspond directly to that dimensional structure. And to fire a fire letter, they call them fire letters because they turn into standing scalar waves once they're turned on. And when they're just in their vibrational state, in their sound state, they're just dormant units of potential. But when they turn on, they fire, and they turn into standing scalar waves and come into manifestation, which means they bring the chemical properties or the hologram properties that go with that mathematical program into manifestation. When we are working with DNA activation, we're working with fire letter activation. There are fire letters and fire letter sequences. I believe each DNA strand has 12 fire letters, which equals one fire letter sequence. And a 12-strand DNA pattern would have 12 fire letter sequences, or 144 fire letters. This is the structure of the dimensional system. Now all beings have that full structure in their DNA templates. There are beings that would have to literally drop their bodies, and the bodies would go back into the earth field to move their consciousness onto a larger structure in order to ascend. But humans and indigos were created with the full 12-dimensional or higher scale encoded in. That means they have a minimum of 144 fire letters in the DNA template. If it was working properly, the fire letters, this pattern of fire letters in the DNA template would create for each strand, there would be 12 chromosomes. 12 full chromosomes for a 12-strand pattern, you would have 144 chromosomes. So a fire letter can be looked at as the blueprint for the chromosomes as well. But it's not just DNA that has fire letters. Every manifest thing has a template, a scalar grid that holds a specific set of mathematics that allows it to come in to manifestation. So this table has a set of fire letters. They don't work in the same way that our fire letters do in a biological, living biological form, but they are still fire letters that hold its form together within the hologram. Now, there's another word that goes with fire letters, which is the word geomancies that I've used before. The geomancies are the mathematical programs of consciousness themselves. They are living symbol forms. What's really interesting is when you begin to meet things like the Akasha, you meet it, you see it. It looks like a code. It looks like the code you see on the paper, but it starts to communicate with you. It says, hello. Yeah. By the way, you didn't know I was a who as well as an it, did you? You know? These are portions of the God consciousness that literally exist in the form. If we were to see them and they came down to Earth and visit us right now in our reality field, they would look like massive living light forms of geometrical shapes of all sorts and kinds. There's all sorts of different ones. The geomancies are the programs that go with the fire letters. If you were to take a fire letter and you could translate it one way into mathematics, you could translate it another way into line, into flash lines. And then if you freeze frame those flash lines, what would they look like? You get a symbol code, the geomancies. So really, the consciousness of the fire letters and the geomancies are the same things. But we use the geomantic symbols, the images of that portions of the God consciousness, in order to trigger the activation of the other part of itself that's in the DNA template or in the Merkaba. The Merkaba is directly related to the DNA template, so fire letters are what set the Merkaba in motion. So I wanted you to be familiar with the term fire letters a little bit. So especially when you come across it in other works, we don't focus on just fire letter activation, because we're trying to give you technologies that you can do all of these things at the same time. You're activating your shields, you're activating your DNA, you're clearing your DNA, you're activating your radial body, and you're activating your Merkaba all at the same time. And if you understand how the pieces fit together, that makes sense. And if you don't, you're just going to go, huh? You know, how am I doing that? So, fire letters is a thing that you'll talk about very briefly. There's a little bit of an explanation of just, what fire letters are. Here on the paper I have fire letters equal the Akasha Forest God intelligence within Kelons, which holds the mathematical programs that govern, and this is where they get specific as far as the difference between a fire letter and a geomancy. The fire letters hold the flash line rhythm programs, how fast and how strong the consciousness pulses will be. When we get to the geomancies, there again, the Akasha Force God intelligence within Kilans, which holds the mathematical programs that govern flashline interface. Now that means those pulses that are governed by the fire letters, as far as how fast and how many, how they interact and at what angles they intersect with each other and interface with each other. Now what this translates into as far as flashline sequences, how fast they're going to pulse on and off, and how they're going to interface with each other, the fire letters that give you the flashline rhythm gives you particle pulsation rhythm, and it gives you the speed rhythms of particle rotation on the planet. Okay, the vibrational rhythm of particles on the planet, on whatever level, is determined by the fire letters specifically. And when you get to the geomancies, they determine the angle of the axis that the particles will rotate on. Now, all reality is taking place in one big field that's called the mind of God. What creates the separate holograms is a shift in angular rotation of particle spin and a difference in speed. What's different between the dimensions here and the dimensions up here? These have a different flashline rhythm, which means they have a different fire letter coding than these up here. It also means that the particles here have a different geomantic form, which would be the part that controls the axis that those particles are going to spin at or rotate upon. Up here they'd be different. Now if you bring these two together into the same one, you blend these two reality fields. So the trick to what's really happening when you do Merkaba is you're bringing these fire letters into synchronization with these fire letters, which is going to give you the same pulsation rhythm of consciousness. These pulse faster. The higher you go in the dimensional field, the faster the flashlines pulse, which means the faster particle are phasing. Okay? You're going to bring these into the same flashline pulsation rhythm, which means your particles down here and those up here in your density 2 body are going to come into the same co-resonance. They're going to resonate in the same vibrational frequency. And what's also going to happen at the same time as that's happening, the geomancies that are down here are going to begin to shift their particle, the particle axis, the rotational axis the particles spin on, to match these up here. And they're going to end up with the same thing, and that's how you get this space and that space in together, and that's how you get yourself that's a body here into a space that's a body here. This is the process that's taking place. So these fire letters and these geomancies are things that govern parts of the DNA activation. They literally govern the angle of particle spin and the speed of particle spin. Now, angle and speed of particle spin is directly related to Merkaba, speed and axis angle. So they're all interconnected. Those fire letters control the axis of the Merkaba, what axis it's going to rotate on. And the yeah, did I say geomancies? Yeah. Okay, geomancies do that. The fire letters control how fast it's going to spin, how fast the pulses of consciousness are coming in. All right, so these are all interconnected. If you can at least know where the pieces fit, you might not know every detail of it, and there's a lot of detail to this. I mean, there's some of it, we get into it in the Kathara Healing Program a bit. And this is just the introductory course stuff. I don't even want to know, you know, some of the other detail. Look at this, this is enough. We have these little brains down here right now. We can't stuff all of this stuff. You guys have big brains up there. You can't stuff all this in. But this is where the fire letters, and we call it the God-Fire alphabet. The fire letters are literally the mathematical programs. Fire letters and geomancies are the mathematical programs that govern the manifestation process. They govern the process, whereas the consciousness that is the fuel or is the power that allows those processes to take place would be the Mane, the Manau, and the Ire at all of the smaller forms that its rays take when that consciousness comes down. Okay, and let me see. Kasha, Mane, salutation. We did that already. Okay. Saying, and here, this is where there's also a placement of where you would use the different techniques on this while we're in the 12 lessons of mastery. So you see where to put what techniques. We did this one earlier, the one we did on the beach, the Mano Technique 2 Akasha Manu Salutation. That you would do after you talked about Kilans and those kind of things, and you got to like the bottom of this page in your 12, and you're teaching somebody how to do this. That's when you would do that exercise. Now, there's other things here. This is what I was supposed to start with when I came in. And I did, actually. I talked about Merkaba and that kind of things. Okay, we get into what's called Veka codes. Now, the VECA codes go with the time vectors. All right, the time vectors are those specific different flash line sequences that govern what a reality system is going to be built on. All right, we have fire letters and we have geomancies that govern the angular rotation of particle spin and the pulsation speed, which means they're controlling the flash lines. They're the patterns that control the flash lines. VECA codes are the outer example of what these mathematical patterns would look like. There's much more to these mathematical patterns that you cannot express in externalization, but these are specific symbol codes that correspond not only to our DNA, but they correspond literally to the original divine blueprint mathematical patterns that the dimensional structure itself was formed on. All right, the human DNA template is a microcosmic reflection of that. Dimensions were structured with 12 subfrequency bands, and those subfrequency bands are coded into our DNA template as the 12 acceleration codes and 12 base codes. It's like those subfrequency bands are split into polarization, and when they come together, the strand activates, blends with the next one above, and you can ascend. Anyway, the VECA codes. Now, there's vector codes, V-E-C-T-O-R, and VECA codes. The vector codes are smaller aspects of fire letters. All right, you have a set of 12 vector codes in each DNA strand, and it's repeated 12 times. So technically, it's like 144 vector codes in one DNA strand, but it's really only one set of 12 that repeats itself 12 times. The vector codes are parts of the blueprint for parts of the chromosomes, and it's the vector codes that have been shut off in the DNA templates that's stopping the rest of the chromosome from manifesting, that's creating these biological and biochemical distortions, and that are totally connected to what the atoms are doing and what they're not doing that they're supposed to be doing, as far as not opening the neutron window so the rest of the life force can come in. We get into VECA code healings. The VECA codes are the mathematical programs that govern and that hold what the vector codes, those itty-teeny little bitty mathematical programs that build up to form the bigger mathematical programs of the fire letters and those kind of things. The VECA codes direct or hold the natural pattern of the vector codes. When you begin to use VECA code symbols, what you're doing is you're resetting the vector codes within the DNA template, but also within the dimensional structure. When we use VECA codes here, we're not only helping ourselves, we're helping the planet as well. We're getting those codes that are naturally a part of its template that have been blocked and dormant back into activation, so the primal life force currents, or the MANA, the MANO, and the IRE, can flow through the planetary grids and flow through our bodies. The VECA codes are pretty. Some of them are very pretty. We have the high VECAs that we have been using recently that they progressively gave us, one each workshop. I think that, they gave us 4 in the one, didn't they? Yeah, first they gave us 1, then they gave us 3, no, then they gave us 3, then they gave us the Akasha. All right, these are called the high VECA codes, and they correspond to dimension 12 up to the Akasha level. All right, they were the high VECA codes. There are other VECA codes, they're the mid-VECA codes that correspond to the middle dimensional fields. And then there's the low VECA codes, which are the Manau codes, that correspond to this density down here, but also this density's connection to D13, which is called the universal void, or the universal Manau force, the 0 point, where this particular universe starts, where it connects to the cosmos up above it, is at the D13 0 point. So the Manau codes and the high VECA codes are the highest level and the most profound programs of all of the VECA code mathematical programs. Within those, you would have all of the rest nested. In other words, one would imply the other, just like in the number 10, it implies the number 1 is in there. You have 10 of those to make a number 10. So what you have, the dimensional structure is the same way. There's a certain set of chelons, fire letters, that forms dimension 1. Dimension 2 has its own set of fire letters plus the one below it. This one has its own set plus the 2 below it. So by the time you get up to 12, you have the whole set is contained within 12. This is why the D12 Divine Blueprint can reset any messes that happen anywhere below it, because it holds within itself the full pattern of what was originally there. The VECA codes are meant to do this for us and for our bodies. When we work with VECA codes, we are resetting the radio body levels. We are resetting the vector codes down in the core of the chromosomes. So there's all related, and VECA codes are one of the easiest things to do. They're just like the things we've been talking about, where you have a set of tones and you have an image. you have its light version. The image is its translation into light. All right, when you see something out here, that is a trion translation. It's coming in from the light fields. It's a Manet translation. When you are hearing something, or the tone, the things we do in tones, they are affecting the miage field, or the sound fields. So we're progressively, by using very simple exercises, we're accomplishing very sophisticated dynamics. Now in these workshops, we take the time to try to explain exactly what those dynamics are to you. We don't just treat you like sheep and say, okay, just do this. You know, here's this pretty picture, look at this. Cross your eyes when you look at this, and then tone this. Okay. You know, some people really prefer it that way. But we're not going to insult your intelligence by doing that. Because you can't tell what the heck you're looking at or what it might do. You're not, if nobody explains why they're working for you. So there are 2 exercises that are in some of the other things already, of the recently given, the recently given Vecca code information. And they were in the Cathara supplement, and I think they're in something else too, aren't they? But they're in this package too anyway, because there are 5 altogether. There are 5 techniques in here, plus the preliminary techniques that if you're going to teach somebody and you haven't been doing any of these techniques, or if you have just, you've not done Maharic Seal and you just got into this course, you would start with the preliminaries in the back of the book, literally. We'd go through those for a month, and that will help you activate enough frequency in your body where you can use Vecca codes. Because if you try to go into Vecca codes cold, where you haven't done Maharic Seal and you haven't been working with some of the other technologies first to get the DNA jump started, the Vecca codes won't activate. They'll partially activate and then shut back down. You won't get the results you're looking for. And that's why if you're going to train anybody, you got to let them know that before you can even do this, I mean, you can look at the exercise, you can play with it, but you're not going to do anything until you do this for a month first. And do it faithfully for a month. Because every time you do an exercise, you are opening the gates to bring in frequency. And if you're just pretending you're doing an exercise, or if you're really telling people, oh, I did it, but I really didn't, well, you're hurting. You're not bringing in the frequency, and that's going to show in what you're capable of doing and how much you're healing. So these 5 exercises together, which is those 2 plus the 2 we already talked about, the 2 mana exercises, and let's see, what was the last one? The 5th one was the one where we used the code I'm having a hard time pronouncing, the IAHEA. It's pronounced the IAHEA code, which was the one that we held up to you that we still don't have a Mylar yet for, do we? We're going to use these 5 exercises in the process of the things you would do on a daily or close to daily basis. There's a very simple sequence at the end of this that is the explanation of what if you can do something right now on a daily basis that's not going to take up your whole day, where you can still live while you do it. Because I mean, you could do technique from now until eternity the way it's going. We get into the 12 actions of mastery that we're talked about. And these are 12 basic things that you could do on a daily basis, and some of them are very quick. And some of them are not just using codes. There's a couple extra things that will help you with your activations processes. And I want to read these. These are in your book as well. This is the last thing I pulled off the computer, so this is the one that made me the most late. But it was worth it, yes?
I'm sorry, I'm going to risk asking a dumb question. Is there a way you can describe visually what angular rotation of particle spin looks like and how that interconnects with itself? I have a visual of a flash line sequence, but I'm trying to visualize particles.
Okay. Well, if you look at flash lines that are pulses of consciousness that are made out of these currents of primal life force energy that break themselves down into units. Remember we talked about myons, dions, trions, and all those other ons that become electrons, protons, and neutrons? What you're dealing with is both particle and wave form of energies that these pulses of consciousness turn into. Okay, these pulses of consciousness that are flash lines break that when they come into manifestation and flash on, turn into a particle or subatomic particle base. Now those things, an angular rotation of particle spin, would be particles, first of all, they pulse and they spin. I mean, even science knows this. When they do particle acceleration, they accelerate the spin of, say, electrons around the nucleus in cells, and it makes different things happen in the cells. So we're dealing about, when we talk about angular rotation of particle spin, it's the angle of the axis upon which particles rotate, where that rotation, there's an axis in there. Now that axis is very hard to see unless you're comparing it to another axis that's different. which you're not going to see, so it's very hard to compare the two. All right? Now, right now, we see particles that have an angular rotation of particle spin axis that are all the same. If there was a different angular rotation of particle spin axis, we wouldn't see it here. It would be in another dimension or another universe. All right? Now, when you're looking at it from above and realizing that all these things coexist, you can look at the relationships. What are they doing between each other? Like, okay, you can say, all right, particles are doing this over here, and they have their, what it's talking about is their Merkaba fields. If you look at every little atom as, okay, let's say it's a circle of energy, almost like a tiny version of your Hoover bodies around you with a Merkaba field that's creating it. If you get into Merkaba fields, it's easier to understand the axis of rotation because you have that cone shape, right? Where that points would be the axis. All right, that creates a vertical axis upon which that sphere of energy, or that elliptical sphere of energy that's the form constant, will form upon. All right, so you have the axis formed by the Merkabas, and inside that you have the form constant where things are going to manifest, be it a person's body or a person's cell. When we're dealing with angular rotation of particle spin, there are different rotational axes that create within the same space separate reality fields, where a particle here would also appear there, but it would be different, something different else in another universe. If you wanted to move your body here, what you need to do is change the rotational speed, the pulsation rhythm of your Merkaba and the particles that it controls, and you need to change your axis. Depending on where you want to go is where you would shift your axis to. Particles do this too on the subatomic level. These things are working. So I think that's the best explanation I can give you right now. There's probably more, and there's stuff in, have you read Cathara yet, the Cathara manual? All right, because that gets into some of that too, and the Templar manual gets into pieces of that. There's a lot more to it, but think of angular rotation of particle spin as every one of your particles has little Merkaba fields, okay? And what is that axis doing? Is it an axis running vertically? Is it pointing this way? Is it pointing this way? Now, the way dimensions are structured, I will add this, the way dimensions are structured, there is a 90-degree shift in angular rotation of particle spin between here and parallel here, all right? Earth and parallel Earth, any of the parallel systems. You have this time matrix, and it's parallel. One runs this way, and one runs this way, horizontally. In between them, at a 45-degree shift of angular rotation of particle spin, that is where you have that transharmonic time matrix. That's where you have the inner Earth line. So particle spin and the angular axis becomes very important if you want to find out how to get your body to another place. If you don't want to stay in this universe and you wanted to go to parallel, you would shift certain things, and you would shift them at a 90-degree shift. You would shift your Merkaba into a 90-degree shift and change it to particle pulsation rhythm by accelerating the particles here by increasing the spin rate, which would change the axis. So you'd want one spin rate to get 90-degree shift, and have another spin rate that would get you a 45-degree shift. And as you're shifting the angles of your particles, you're popping from one time frame into another, into another. All right, so this is where the angles of the angular rotation of particle spin comes in. It has to do with being able to hop timelines, because time cycles and timelines and dimensions and harmonic universes all exist in the same space, which is no space, but they exist at a different pulsation speed, and they have a different angle as far as if their Merkaba is the key to the formation of everything, be it a universe or a cell. That Merkaba has an axis. There's an axis that energy spirals through, a central vertical axis. So that's what it applies to, and it's very important when it comes to understanding how you get from one dimension to another, or how you get from one reality field to another. I think I'll leave it there. Does that help? Does that help at all?
Yeah.